Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of what if issei become a villain in high school DxD Part 3. Chapter 8. Play my game. Previously, we saw issei come back where he was immediately bombarded with questions from his parents and other members as they all were not getting any answers from him. Aika then makes the mistake of demanding his help, as issei shows that he is not to be messed with. He brings her close to her and yells at her, almost bringing her to tears due to her fear. He then sees his parents defend her, which angers him even more. He berates all of them, and the next time they bother him, he will not hesitate to kill them. He then walks inside, leaving them in fear. As this was going on, Envold wonders on how will she convince issei to give up his attack when she finds several clothing which she decides to wear after taking a bath. Upon realizing that she was nothing but a pawn for him, she burns them all to the ground. She then wears her cool clothing as she goes to shop. As this was going on, issei and Office were watching anime when Artemis comes in as she discusses her state of approval. Issei understands this and gives her a necklace that she will make Athena wear to deal with her, and she will start to get corrupt very soon. As they go back to watching when Artemis leaves, Kuroka demands where Valerie is, to which issei doesn't know where she is. Meanwhile, the gods of the Greek mythology discuss on what to do, as Zeus agrees to release Nyx. Athena and Artemis meet, with the former checking on videos on issei and Malak, as Artemis gives her a necklace, which starts to corrupt her slowly and surely. Artemis then leaves. Moments later, all the gods and goddess gather, with some being against the release of Nyx, but they have no choice but to accept issei's deal. They then agree to leave Artemis and Athena to guard Nyx, as they all agree to do so while sealing away her divinity. After which issei managed to successfully recreate the true loneliness. As this was going on, issei encounters Envold who tries to convince him, but he refuses. However, Envold was done with this, as she retorts back, she is angry with issei treating her like that. Issei also responds back, however, he brings up points that break her down. Envold, on the other hand, refuses to back down as she stays resilient. Issei is surprised. However, he does not change his goals. He walks away with him planning his next move. The factions then decide what is to be done next, with Ajuka coming up with a suggestion that he should put some girls for engagement. With the girls being unaware of this, they also put Artemis's name on it, causing her to be in utter shock and disbelief. She was not expecting her father to agree to this without hesitation. Artemis understands this and shows this to her inner self, with her joining in after the meeting, as she asks to talk to his aide due to all of this. Underworld, 6 p.m. The DxD group could be seen with tired looks. None of what they were doing was making any sense. They tried to find any leads to the droid army as well as Malak, but they were finding none. Among the group, the ones to stand out with tired looks are Sigvari Agars, Asia Argento and Ravel Phoenix. However, whatever their efforts, nothing was found, not even a hint of them. Bam! Biku exclaimed with frustration, we couldn't find anything on that bastard, it was like the earth swallowed him whole. I am not surprised, Arthur spoke with an expressive tone. After all, he is someone to hide himself and attack when we least expected. You're kidding, right? Riaz asked in surprise, to which Arthur only shook his head. Riaz feared what would happen if she was under attack. He is right. The attacks are meant for only a single purpose, to destroy the faction. Sona spoke with worry as she had a thoughtful look. If we see the video, Malak and issei are leagues above any of us. Tsubaki spoke as many made a disgusting face when his name was mentioned. Some even had fear written on their faces. That idiot, he is just a joke. Jinchiro Saji spoke with disgust, he is just a human with nothing special. He remembered that his own family treats him with indifference. That human was the only known being that could go toe-to-toe with Malak, and when Sona told Jinchiro, who clenched his fist in annoyance, and besides he is the Red Dragon Emperor, who even was able to take down Azazel without his gear, Sona continued as Jinchiro became angrier at this, clenching his fists tighter. Damn bastard. He is not only the center of attention, but he will have the same benefits. I enjoyed. Dai thought angrily, he was not happy with his Sei's success. What happened? How did this ever happen? Under our noses, When did he grow up? I thought with sadness and fear, she was imagining her brother at the top. Then how can we ask for his help? Sayard Bales spoke as Tsubaki responded. We have to release next. Tsubaki spoke, which shocked many. We have no other choice. He doesn't understand that her being back will bring bad memories for Ingvilde spoke coldly, to which Sona shook her head and retorted, sorry, we have no other choice. It is we release her or face extinction. Sona's words made Dai silent as she continued, innocent people's lives are in danger. We either do that or they suffer. Elizabeth was watching everything. She had a look of confusion, but in reality, she was laughing seeing them suffer. The look of the desperation on this elite team, for which she drew a smile when she felt eyes in Jinshiro's gaze. I can't believe I was so blind in thinking that they are our saviors. I should thank Lord Issei to open my eyes. Elizabeth thought with disgust and gratitude, the latter being directed to Issei. The look she received from the boys was anything but holy. She flew off using her wings and headed to a different location in the underworld where Griselda was. She had no time to waste with these idiots. Griselda, I will be leaving since I have some appointments to do, Elizabeth asked, to which Griselda responded, don't you want someone to accompany you? Elizabeth shook her head upon that, to which Griselda spoke with a smile, very well, you may leave. Elizabeth flew off. She needed to report this to her Lord Issei for telling what is going on. She wanted to get away from them as soon as possible. The girl understood your gaze, my dear host, and even your friends as well. Vitra spoke with a mocking tone, mentally to Sagi, which annoyed him. I do residence, 7 p.m. Issei was sitting on his couch, bored as always. He always had fun in Hades's domain where he could talk to Persephone and Hades. He spoke with a sigh. Hey Dreg, any ideas to cut the board day? Issei asked his best friend, to which Dreg asked, nothing. Ever since you succeeded in recreating the true loneliness, the other holy artifacts have been a piece of cake. I would suggest you to train. But at this point, you know all possible ways to activate the full power of any sacred gear, and honestly, you can even take on the gods at this point. So even I am out of ideas. Drake spoke sadly. As Issei and Drake sighed, there was nothing to do. However, moments later, a magic circle opened up as Issei spoke. Maybe this day will get interesting, Issei spoke with Drake nodding agreement. However, before Issei could move, he seemed to be smothered by something. Once he saw what it was, he had a flustered look as a voice spoke. I shouldn't have been in a rush. Issei recognized the voice to be Artemis. As she looked down, she saw Issei, but not with a pleasant look. I am only going to give you 3 seconds to get up before I shock you with lightning slayer gloves, Issei spoke coldly and with a threatening tone. Artemis, realizing this, immediately blushed and jumped off and apologized profusely with constantly bowing down. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it. I won't repeat it again, Lord Issei. Drake was laughing his ass off, which annoyed Issei. He looked at Artemis and composed himself, as he asked, what are you even doing here? Artemis took a moment to compose herself, as she spoke seriously. I have a good news, a bad news, and a request. Artemis's words made Issei understand that must have been why she was in a rush. He sighed and activated Dimension Loss to make sure no one hears their conversation. The dimensions were soon altered. Speak, Issei commanded, as Artemis spoke with a serious tone. The good news is that the goddess Nyx will be released soon. This made Issei's mood change from a neutral one to a happy mode. He was pleased with the news. Good, very good. Everything is going as I have foreseen, Issei spoke with happiness. He knew that the one in front of her was a copy of Artemis, not the original one, whom he can reward. He also remembered the bad news and request. Go ahead with the bad news, Issei commanded seriously, to which Artemis asked. You may not like this one, are you sure? Issei sighed and spoke. Look, I know that the factions ain't gonna release her without some restrictions. Issei spoke sadly, yet anger could be heard in his voice. Just get on with it, I can handle it. Very well then. They plan on sending myself and Athena to keep in guard on her as well as sealing her divinity. Artemis spoke seriously and with disgusted tone, to which Asahi spoke. That was something I was expecting. Of course, they were going to do that. Artemis shook her head, surprising him. She then spoke seriously. That's not all, the factions are planning to engage you with several girls. Issei widened his eyes and shouted. What? Explain. Artemis nodded, not affected much by the command, as she explained everything that happened in the meeting. Needless to say, Issei was not happy. They thought of controlling him and spying on him with the girls. He was disgusted by the fact that they didn't even care about using their own family for this. For someone that barely had any family or friends in his life, he understood the value and worth of having loved ones more than most people. Those motherfucking idiots, Issei shouted as he released some of his aura due to anger, which made Artemis fall back in fear. She was worried upon what her lord will do. Understanding this, Issei sighed and apologized. Sorry, it's just that when they do such things, I get angry as well. Artemis compassed herself and responded while shaking her head. No. Even I am angry. The fact that they have the thought of this, such bloody hypocrites. Artemis spoke with disgust, as she then remembered, which brings me to the third reason why I am here. It is the request. It seems like inner Artemis is ready to join us. Artemis spoke happily, which surprised Issei, who spoke with a smile on his face. A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Issei spoke as he activated Alpha Tyrant and entered her mindscape, with the other Artemis being happy that she will be whole. Scene change. Artemis's mindscape, 7:30 p.m. Issei looked at Artemis, who had tears in her eyes as she spoke. You came. Artemis was happy that Issei had come for her, as he then spoke. I did. Are you sure about this? Once you do, there is no turning back. You will lose your father, mother, sister, everyone. You can still back out now. Artemis shook her head as she spoke angrily. Zeus engaged me with someone. I barely knew technically if he was willing to sacrifice me and my sister to do this. Then it means that I was only meant as a means to an end. Artemis spoke with anger towards the man I am in. I don't want to be near those men from my faction and the DXD group. I want to be by your side, Artemis declared, which made his say nod as he speaks in a neutral tone. In that case, I will remove the nail. You will return to your original body, betray me, and you die. All right. Artemis nods without hesitation and responds she would take her own life than betray him, since Issei never lied to her in any way. He even went so far as to show his own memories, which only showed the truth, and nothing more, nothing less. I would rather take my own life than turn on someone like you. I will do anything you ask. Artemis spoke in a determined tone. She trusts Issei, since he never lied to her in any way, so someone like him should be bound to trust. In that case, welcome to the team, Artemis, Issei declared, as everything went to white. Once this was done, the merging was completed. Both Artemis were now one. Scene change. Hi-Do residence. 7:50 p.m. Issei and Artemis returned back to the real world, or the one in the dimensional gap. As Artemis looks at her body, she was back in her own body. Issei had the holy nail in his hand, which disappeared. Thank you, Lord Issei. What do you ask me to do? Artemis spoke with admiration, as Issei spoke with a calm tone. Keep an eye on the Greek faction and the others, pretend like you are still a part of them, make sure they don't find out about you. Issei spoke, which made Artemis lose a portion of a smile. She was not happy with the command. Understanding this, Issei spoke seriously. Look, you will have to tolerate men sometime in the future. I know this may not make you happy, but for a while, you must do it. Artemis nodded, understanding that her hatred was affecting her lord. She shook her head and then spoke. Very well, I will keep my hatred under check. It may not go, but if there is anyone whom I can trust, it is you, because you never lied to me. Artemis spoke with a smile before teleporting to Olympus to act as his spy. Issei was having a good day because now Artemis has willingly joined him, just like Elizabeth. Now all that remains is Gondel, which will happen soon. Scene change. Astaroth territory, Underworld, 8:15 p.m. Ajuka Beelzebub was sitting with a tired look, as he did not know how is he going to explain the engagement to his niece Latia Astaroth. He did not know how he is going to tell her that she is engaged. A few moments later, a servant decided to announce the arrival of Latia Astaroth. She was described to be a beautiful girl with almond eyes, with long blonde hair with blue hair tips, as she has a voluptuous body and large breasts. She wears a noble-like dress while holding an elegant folding fan. Is something the matter, Lord Beelzebub? Latia asked incredulously. She was surprised to see her uncle here, but no matter, it has to be important. Latia, I have something to tell you. Ajuka spoke with a serious tone that made the Astaroth heiress shiver. She has rarely heard Ajuka in this tone, to which she spoke with a tone that had hints of nervousness. Uncle, you are making me concerned. Did something happen? Latia spoke with worry in her voice. She feared what will happen to her. I am sorry for this. Ajuka spoke with a serious tone, but there was some sadness in his tone. But I had to compromise you to someone. Latia widened her eyes in shock, horrified by the news she received as she spoke with a disbelieving tone. Please tell me you are joking. Latia looked at her uncle, who looked away. He had been keeping her away from any possible engagements. She kept her hands on her mouth in disbelief as she spoke with horror. How could you? Latia asked, to which Ajuka spoke in a sad tone. Look, Latia, I am. Latia interrupted her uncle and responded in a cold tone. Save it. I don't want your apology. Who is it? Ajuka was surprised by what had happened, to which Latia responded with a slightly raised tone. Who is it? Ajuka looked away. He didn't even consider her opinion or love life before going ahead with this decision. It's the Red Dragon Emperor, issei Heide. Issei Latia spoke in a tone that lacked emotion. She knew him very well. Although she never met or talked to him, she has heard stories from Riaz and the others, but she did not believe them until she meets him in person. Latia, please, I am. Ajuka tried talking to her, to which Latia spoke coldly. You should have told me before coming up with this. Latia glared at her uncle as she then spoke. Now, if you will excuse me, I would like some time alone. I need to prepare myself for the engagement. Latia spoke with a slightly mocking tone. She was disappointed in her uncle for treating her the same way her parents might have done, but she knew sooner or later she would be engaged to someone. That was a lady's fate in the Devil's Society. There nothing she could do. Her uncle did protect her for a long time. Ajuka felt helpless seeing this situation. He was the one to do this to her, as he came up with the idea of pairing the girls with the Red Dragon Emperor. Scene change. Second heaven, 8 p.m. Are you serious? A woman shouted in the corridor. This was Marana Shuratova, who was a girl with cyan hair and amethyst eyes. She wore a flower on her hair and carried a parasol. Her expression was not happy. She also wore a dark-colored skirt, which was sleeveless, along with leggings, which reached her calves. She also wore a covering around her chest area. I am sorry, Marana, both you and Elizabeth are engaged. I am sorry, Marana, both you and Elizabeth are engaged. Michael spoke with a tone of sadness, as even Elizabeth was shocked by this. However, she feigned disbelief. Despite this, she was still horrified that Michael would sacrifice her and Marana. She lost any and all remaining faith she had in the angel faction. No, I refuse. This is unacceptable. Elizabeth shouted in anger. She was not happy with what had just happened. If anything, she was angry, but even that was fabricated so as to not arouse suspicion. At this point, she would rather be with issei than with these hypocrites. You have no choice in that matter. Same goes for both of you. Michael spoke seriously, but he was not happy too with what had happened. Elizabeth stormed off while feigning fury as Marana exclaimed, Elizabeth, wait. Marana gave a side glare before following her friend. Both hated this engagement. Michael was ashamed at what he had done. Once she went out of sight, she desired to go to Lord Issei, as she remembered that a few things have happened. She still had a small portion of her consciousness inside of her that still believed in what Issei was doing was wrong, but unlike hard Miss O'Donnell, hers was sealed away. She could neither interact nor do anything with her. That was until now, when she sensed someone was in her body. She was shocked to find it was Elizabeth. The reason was that, in reality, a very small portion of her original personality and memories remained, an oversight that even Issei could not imagine or predict. Since he was in a rush to merge dark light with her, he had to force even her inner personality to accept with him, since her holy light would reject and eliminate the dark light. This was due to her holy reserves being massive. If he didn't use the dark light, heaven would detect her fall and would cast her out so as to keep her as a spy for issei. Had to make it as quickly as possible, and he used the more holy nails to make it as quick as possible. This resulted in her original personality being merely erased. Detecting her now sensible presence, Elizabeth spoke to her inner self. So you see it now, Elizabeth. Michael only sees our Lord as a greedy and jealous man. I hope you are watching because soon you will realize how far the angels have fallen. Even Gabriel failed to see the truth about our Lord. Elizabeth flew towards Issei. With her inner consciousness, although weak and small, she was able to see what the angels really were. She wanted to talk to Issei about her willingly joining Issei. However, unbeknownst to anyone, even Issei himself, Issei found a way to create mindless slaves meant to spy on the factions. Scene change. Ida residence, 8:15 p.m. Issei was happy with what had happened. He was thinking on how he should free Nick since he is not going to accept those girls to build relationships with the factions. He hated that they even would use their own people for forwarding their goals. He pitied those girls, but the issei was surprised to see a magic circle open up as it was revealed to be Elizabeth. Lord Issei, I am sorry for coming in unannounced. Elizabeth spoke with a guilty tone, to which Issei shook his head. He was happy that, unlike Artemis, she did not make Issei experience her chest, which is surprising for a virgin goddess. No. It's fine. Tell me what is that you wanted to tell me, and before you ask, I am aware of what happened in the meeting. Artemis told me about it. Issei spoke. Elizabeth shook her head in response and spoke. I am not here to tell you that. You see, this is what happened. Elizabeth then explained to her that some of her personality remained in her original body, and this was due to Essie using too many holy nails, something that would completely separate the original from the copy. Issei was left bewildered as he spoke with frustration. I was not expecting this, an unknown variable. I should have known angels were known for their blind loyalty, but this is not what I was expecting. Issei looked at Elizabeth and asked, so I need to talk to her true personality, is that it? Elizabeth nods in agreement, to which Issei sighs. He activates Alphaka Tyrant and enters inside. Scene change. Elizabeth's mindscape, 8:30 p.m. Hello, Elizabeth. What happened? Issei spoke with surprise. He saw Elizabeth crying. She was constantly rubbing her eyes. What she saw and heard completely shattered her. She was not chained, unlike Artemis or Gondol. Do I believe them, too, trusted them? I always thought this was the right thing, that serving God was right, and those that served God was right. Elizabeth spoke while crying and sniffling, but I was wrong. Tay only saw him as a pawn, that's all. Bad damn, Michael, Issei thought in anger. He now understood that the other girls must be going through this. He hated Ajuka for even come up with this idea. Despite this, he couldn't feel sympathy for her due to his past. So what do you want to do? Issei asked to Elizabeth. She cried for a moment and then snapped out of her nature and spoke. I want to serve you. You have never lied to me on any occasion, never done anything behind my back. I desire to serve you and not the heaven anymore. Elizabeth's voice was determined, to which Issei spoke with a sigh. Very well, I will remove the nail, so this would undo the merging, but you will be completely loyal to me. Betray me in any way, Elizabeth, and you will die. Issei spoke seriously, to which Elizabeth nodded without hesitation as she spoke. I am yours to command. You never lied to me. I am ready to join you on my own accord. Essie nodded and decided to remove the nail. Elizabeth gave him a genuine smile before the mindscape ends. Scene change. I do residence, 8:45 p.m. Issei had a holy nail in his hands as he then looked at Elizabeth, who had woken up in the real world. As she looked at her hands, she was back in her real body. The holy nail disappeared as Elizabeth bowed in front of him and spoke gratitude. Thank you for this, Lord Issei. Issei nods in response before she leaves to continue spying for Issei in the Heaven faction. She still needed to explain herself to Marana Shuratova so as to not make her get suspicious of Elizabeth's actions. Life is good, Issei spoke with a smile, as two people have joined him willingly and are loyal to him. He just found two good allies, one being Elizabeth and the other being Artemis. Now all he had to wait was for the factions to send them someone so that he could play along with them. He had other plans for them. He also needed to research about this phenomenon, which took place with Elizabeth. He knew that he could use this to his advantage. Scene change. Time skip. The next day. I-Do residence. 4 p.m. Issei was seated on a chair as he was waiting for the leaders to show up. As he sat on the throne, he knew from Artemis that the meeting will be at 4 p.m. before Graphia even informed him about it. Issei was excited, not because of the faction leaders, but to meet Nyx. He just wanted to hug and be with her after that. He felt love for her, but was not ready to confess yet. The magic circle then opened up, and this belonged to the Gremory clan. He understood that this time, Sergiches had personally come to get him for the meeting. Issei's stance unnerved Sergiches, however. He controlled himself and spoke. Issei, hi, do you need to come for Issei? Interrupted him and responded, yeah, I am aware. Let's get this over with. Issei spoke in an uninterested tone, which did take Sergiches aback, but given his nature, it was to be expected as Issei walked towards the circle, and both men teleported themselves to the meeting location. Underworld, 4:30 p.m. Vulcan, Issei hide you. Sergiches declared in a seemingly friendly manner, but he had to not make a mistake. As Issei scanned his room, he saw the leaders for the devils along with Graphia, leader of Fallen, Norse, Greek, Yao Kai, and vampires. He also looked at Artemis and Elizabeth, giving him a smile, to which he internally grinned. His allies have well adjusted themselves to the situation. They were among the girls that were asked to be engaged. He could see that despite their faces, they were not happy, especially Sekiruuyetei and Latia, who both glared at Issei for being one of the reasons to being wed to them. I assumed it was only between the faction leaders, so tell me, what are these lads doing here? Issei spoke while feigning ignorance. Latia was about to shout, but Sekiruuyetei stopped her, to which Sergiches spoke on behalf of the leaders, seriously. You see, we have all come up with a decision to release Nick. Sergiches looked at Issei awaiting his response. He seated near the seat allotted to him. He made sure to check for any seals, which when confirmed, he sat down. So you took my request, not bad to say, spoke feigning surprise and happiness as he then spoke with a serious tone. But I feel like there is a big but here. This surprised the leaders. They were not expecting Issei to have this understanding of the situation, to which Shemesh. I spoke seriously, but we want your cooperation and alliance in return. Issei spoke with a neutral tone. Well, I did promise you that. This caused a wave of happiness as many sighed in relief. However, Issei then spoke, internally smirking. It is time to make the factions play his game. May I look at the draft? Issei asked, to which Shemaziah nodded. He read the draft, and he was not happy, and this was shown in the face. He saw there were a lot of things that didn't add up. He would be married to all these girls, and he was not in for them. Although this was something he knew, he still had to show his anger to them. He also noticed that Nyx's divinity being sealed was not present, and this pissed him off a lot. When he asked for the release of Nyx, he made sure to make it clear she should be released in one piece. He could unseal her divinity, but he was furious that the factions had the audacity to do such a thing. It was like stripping away their everything and making them a nobody, and he would never tolerate such a thing, especially for his loved ones. Really, I wouldn't notice. Issei's words shocked the leaders. You want me to engage me with these girls so that I would become your ally? Is that what you have become? Have you become that desperate? Issei shouted angrily at the leaders. The leaders, along with several of the engagement girls, were angered by his words. But Artemis and Elizabeth were internally happy, especially Artemis, who knew how angry Issei was when he had heard of this yesterday. The fact that you engaged them within a day, I am pretty sure that most of them wouldn't even have time to be prepared for it. You faction leaders disgust me to the very core. Issei shouted with anger emanating from his voice. His aura was being released. He made sure to not reveal the part that he was a forbidden existence, at least not yet. But then, how would you come to know of the meeting yesterday? Seraphil asked, shocked. She was really afraid that if Issei came to know of what really happened, then they can forget his help. Issei started to chuckle, with his voice slowly changing into a laughter. I have eyes and ears everywhere, so don't even think about hiding stuff from me. Issei spoke with an evil grin. This terrified the leaders. He then spoke with an increasing tone. I also know of the fact that you tried to use them for spying on me. You tried to even go so far as to control me. And not to mention the fact that you tried to strip her of her divinity. How dare you? Issei screamed the last part. With many being fearful, Issei knew everything. However, some were furious. Brad, we are releasing her, so you should be grateful that we are even doing that. Zeus growled with fury. However, Issei has insulted him for the last time, and he glared at Zeus. Oh, don't get me cracking at you, Mr. Cheater God, as he shouted, making the thunder god grit his teeth in fury. Many were shocked at Essie's words. He disrespected the thunder god right in front of everyone. What if I stripped your divinity? It is almost like stripping away your nature. What if I did the same to you, Cheater God? When I said to release Nyx, there was no strings attached. Asiel shouted even more, which made many furious, especially Zeus. However, Asiel was equally mad. Artemis and Elizabeth were enjoying the scene. However, even they know Asiel was not even done yet. He also told them that he was not even done yet. Issei spoke with a frustrated tone after making a sigh. You know what, I will do it myself. Issei's words shocked many of them present. He used his ring and opened up a portal directly to Nyx's prison. He was in the portal for a while as he used God's slaying magic to nullify all the seals that was put on Nyx. He then came out moments later as he spoke with a mocking tone. You know what they say, if you want to get something done, you should do it yourself. Issei then looked towards the portal and spoke with a loving smile. Come on out, Nyx. Issei's words shocked everyone. He managed to undo seals that were meant for gods. A few moments later, a beautiful young woman with the cute face of a child that has long black hair and with pointy ears. She wears a cute frilly dress called Godly Virgin Killer Clothes that has a corset jumper skirt. Her body also gives out a tremendous dark aura. Eyes, you didn't have to. Nyx spoke with worry. She was afraid of what they will do to Issei, as Issei gave her a loving smile. No need to worry, Nyx. Let them try. Let's see how far they will get. Issei gave a mocking smile, which made many shocked, fearful, and angry. Zeus was the angriest. He was about to get up to shock Issei, but before he could, Sergius put his hand in front of him. Sergius, Zeus exclaimed in shock and horror. He was also not happy with what had happened, but he had no choice. Zeus, seeing the situation, reluctantly sat down, gritting his teeth in fury. Dealing with the both of them will not end well. He could potentially conjure up something that could take them all down at once. Issei then spoke. You made the right choice. Lucifer, Issei spoke while shaking his head. His tone then changed into a mocking tone. All you idiots needed to do was to release Nyx, and I would gladly help against Malik. But now, forget about it. As he spoke, seeing their faces not being happy was something that he enjoyed a lot. Sergius and the others could only look away in defeat. They are doomed. They are screwed. Now Issei will never help them now. Sergius spoke with frustration. Find you when all we need to do is sign the decree, and Nyx is all yours. Sergius gave up. All hope was lost. Seeing them in despair was something he was going to enjoy the most. However, he was not done yet. He needed to teach them a lesson to not manipulate them ever again. He saw the leaders signing them one by one. He was happy that everything was going the right way. He waited for his right time to strike. Once this was done, they gave him the paper, which he put it in a pocket dimension, as he did. But we are not done yet. You still have to pay some interest. Issei spoke mockingly with a sinister grin, which made the leaders worry. As Sergius spoke while glaring at him. What do you want now? Issei chuckled evilly as he dashed towards Zeus and Ajuka. Before anyone could react, he had grabbed the two by their throats and threatened the rest of the leaders. Make a move against me or Nyx, and I will kill them. Before anyone could react, the three were gone. Issei had used Dimension Lost to enter into his own world, making many worry for him. A few moments later, they both appeared. Zeus had several wounds on his body, and Ajuka was terrified beyond capacity. Whatever Issei did to them, they both were alive, however, with one being in anger, while the other being in fear. Remember this, never try to control a dragon ever again. Or you too will regret it. Issei exclaimed before walking away towards Nyx, who was worried for him. Issei assured her that she was fine. Sergiches and the others came to the aid of the two, as he shouted, "Why did you do that?" Sergiches was furious. He hated what Issei did to his friend, to which Issei responded, "That was a warning. If any of you ever try to do anything with me or Nyx, I will make sure you have the most painful death imaginable. Always remember to never control a dragon." Issei spoke with an evil smile. Sergiches and the others were terrified. If a Juka was brought to such a state, that means that the one in front of them is a monster. Nyx was blushing at this, while Artemis and Elizabeth were smiling, with Artemis being the happiest seeing Zeus in such a condition. Seeing their despair-ridden faces, Issei had an idea. He decided to give them some hope and then take it away from them. "How about we play a game?" Issei spoke, gathering the attention of everyone present. "Prepare a fight for me against my brother, Dihaidu, the bearer of Crumb Crouch, in a week's time. If I lose, I will join you, but if I win, you and the factions will keep your word of never bothering me." Issei's words shocked everyone, even his own allies were surprised by this. "Lord Issei, what are you thinking?" Artemis thought with shock, as Elizabeth also had the same look on her face. "You really are going to help them? I hope you know what you are thinking." Elizabeth looked at Artemis, who was equally surprised by this. She was the only one she could trust since both are in the same group and situation. "So what do you say? Your last chance. You can either take it or leave it." Issei spoke with a shrug as Sergic has spoken instead of all the leaders. "I accept your game. In a week's time I hope you are ready." Issei grinned, which meant that he had something planned. This was noticed by Artemis, Nyx and Elizabeth. The other leaders had no choice but to accept this. Issei was about to turn, but he remembered the girls he was awarded. He then looked at them and had another idea. "Since you decided to perform the deed, I wonder what will happen if your factions come to know of this." Issei spoke with a sinister grin, but User Afal spoke in surprise as Issei responded, "I can use my memories to reveal everything what happened here. I wonder how the DXD team or even your people would react, seeing that you tried to ruin your only hope. You even tried to use the girls so that I will fall to your charms and betray me when needed. I can twist the news in such a way that your own people will turn against you." This brat, Zeus, thought angrily, seeing that many were in a fix due to the situation. No one was happy with Issei's words. If anything, they were furious. However, Sergiches had no choice. "Fine, what do you want if we ask you to keep our mouths shut?" Sergiches spoke in defeat. He was angry, while his wife Graphia and his other fellow Satans were equally shocked at what Sergiches spoke. "What are you going to ask me?" Odin spoke in defeat. "What do you want, brat?" Zeus spoke with Athena being shocked at her father being subjugated by the Red Dragon Emperor. Even Amihat, Yusaka, Shemeshai and Michael nodded in defeat. They had to accept Issei's offer. "In the end, you are no different." That RageRevan Seraphol spoke coldly, to which Issei chuckled. "Whatever you say." Madoka 2.0 Asai spoke with a smile, angering Seraphol even more. "That's your worst attempt at an insult." This made Seraphol's blood boil. "And what I want is these girls." Asai pointed to the girls in the group, which shocked and angered many, while Artemis and Elizabeth were happy, but they feigned shock and anger. The leaders were about to refuse, however. Issei wiggled his finger. "Nah. You offered these girls to me. It would be a shame for me to not accept them." Issei spoke with a wink, making many furious. But the leaders had no choice for two reasons: they were at his mercy, and two, he would just reveal everything to the public. Nyx's release would itself cause a lot of tension and fear, and this would only add insult to injury. "And besides, you have chosen quite the lineup." Issei spoke while learning a knock from Nyx as he gave her a wry smile, which made her pout. Issei will have to deal with her later. This also made many even more furious. However, they were afraid that Issei might reveal everything to the whole supernatural world, creating chaos. "Fine." It was Zeus who spoke. This horrified Athena. She was paralyzed, with many of the girls speaking in agreement, while Artemis shook her head in disappointment. She expected this from her father. Issei was shocked. He was honestly expecting Zeus to negotiate with something else. but now he lost any and all respect he had for him. The leaders were speechless. Many were shocked and horrified at this, especially Ajuka, as Athena was the first to walk towards Issei as she spoke. "Let's go." Issei remained silent, still trying to process what happened. Azusa tried to beg. "Athena, wait, I was just joking. Please come back." However, Athena gave a sharp glare to her father and spoke. "I was just another pawn to you for you to wage a ride." Athena's voice was cold. She then walked away, but not before speaking. "Let's go, girls, we are just meant for this." Athena left the room while the rest were still processing what happened. She was waiting outside for issei, while the other girls soon followed. They needed some time to process what happened. They wondered if their leaders would do the same. Many leaders angrily glared at Zeus, believing that they would have done the same. Issei and Nyx were about to leave, as well. "This is all your fault," Zeus shouted, to which Issei responded in a mocking tone. "Don't pin this on me. You are responsible for this, and honestly, you disgust me." Zeus gritted his teeth in fury as the leaders had to convince the girls that they did not intend to do it. You are the worst Red Dragon Emperor I have even known." The voice was now Yasaka's, who was not speaking the whole time, to which Issei smiled. "You are right, I am the worst. You did already told me this when I was in Kyoto. I still remembered your words, and I quote, 'I am sorry, but you are the worst. You are a terrible person, and I don't want a person like you as my partner. You would set a bad example for my daughter. I am just showing you what you considered me as.' Issei spoke mockingly, to which Isayaka grits her teeth in fury. She glared at her future brother-in-law as Issei and Nyx walk away. "Remember, 1 week, this is your last chance. Make sure to tell this to your pillar, and prepare yourselves and make sure everyone in the supernatural world sees this." Issei spoke with an evil grin before he headed outside with Nyx, leaving the leaders to swallow themselves in defeat. Scene change. Once outside, as he spoke to his new engaged girls with a serious tone. "You all will be living in the Hayato residence since the leaders have chosen you as a wager." He spoke as he teleported them all to the front of the residence. Only Nyx, Artemis, and Elizabeth were left. Issei activated Dimensional Gap to prevent anyone from listening on his conversation. As he changed dimensions, Elizabeth and Artemis approached him and asked, "Lord Issei, may I know why you asked for a match?" Elizabeth asked in worry. She did not want to serve the angels ever again. "Even I want to know, and why you didn't tell us this." Artemis spoke, not wanting to ever go back to the Greek, even more so than before. What are you planning?" Nyx asked. Issei looked at the 3 girls and spoke with a smile. "Have you noticed how desperate the faction leaders were?" Issei looked at the girls, whom all nodded, so much so that Zeus, even to save his own skin, sacrificed his 2 daughters without even thinking about the others, even going so far as to accepting anything I wanted. Disagreeing, seeing them in such despair and anguish. "So what, are you really going to fight him?" Nyx asked, to which Issei gave a nod. "Indeed, because then the whole supernatural world would see what is happening, and once I defeat him," Issei spoke, as the 3 girls listened in rapt attention, "I will reveal to the whole supernatural world the fraud my brother really is. And with that, the seeds which have been scattered will bloom at a rapid rate, causing distrust, followed by a civil war, resulting in chaos for everyone." Issei spoke with a grin. "If he can create peace, he can destroy that peace as well. I stole his achievements, but it was his actions that had a major influence in this to be working to even begin with, else the beast of apocalypse would have long overrun the factions at this point. Every single battle, every single attack was meant for the Alliance. But now, Issei has some very different goals compared to before, and it will end when the factions fall." "I see. Is that why you put forward the battle?" Elizabeth asked her lord, to which Issei gave a nod. "Indeed, they believe that they are entitled to my help because I am related to their pillar, and in order to achieve that, they will do anything, even accept my offers. So all we do is wait for the dominoes to fall, and until then, we enjoy the show." Issei spoke with a grin as he looked at the girls and commanded, "Artemis, report to Gondel about the situation, necessary preparations, and make sure that no one can stop the transmission of when I exposed I." 1 week later, both girls nodded as Issei returned the dimensions back to normal. They then left the area. He then looked at Nyx, happy to see her again. He hugged her, making the goddess blush heavily. I missed you. Nyx Issei spoke happily, to which Nyx returned the hug and responded. I miss you too, Issei. They remained like this for a while before splitting up. Issei then spoke. Let's get you settled in. You will be with me from now on. Nyx nodded with a smile as they both teleported back to the Hyder residence. Chapter 9. Adjusting to a normal life. Hyder residence, 9:30 p.m. Like it or not, she is staying. Here Issei spoke as he was surrounded by the girls that were promised to him in his own harem. The only ones missing were Artemis and Elizabeth, as they both were doing their tasks Issei asked them to do. Issei Heidu, the primordial goddess Nyx, is not allowed in this house. You know how much of a danger she is to the people around her, especially Ingvaldrias retorted angrily. She has not learned her lesson properly. She was accompanied by her own peerage, Dee's peerage, Ika and Issei's parents, Garu and Mickey, Invald, and finally, Valerie. Issei was getting angry. It would only take him a minute to put her in her place. He scanned the house and many showed unpleasant faces, but some were fearful of speaking a word, knowing what he would do. Don't forget that I am the primordial goddess of darkness, Gremory. It will only take me a minute to put you and your peerage to the ground. Nyx reacted to Ria's demands. Issei was happy that the girl would defend herself. He also looked at Ria's expression as she was starting to lose her confidence. Nyx was no joke. She could easily take on her and her peerage. She looked towards Dee, who was gritting his teeth in anger. She hoped that he would intervene and stop his brother. Issei only looked at him and smiled as he asked, What's the matter, brother? Cat got your tongue? Issei's tone was mocking, which made most of the Gremory peerage angry due to what Issei had said about their love as he spoke. Didn't your brother already tell you about the situation? Rio stopped for a moment, and remembered her brother saying that Nyx has been released due to Issei's actions. He remembered accounting for everything he had said, including his declaration of a fight against Issei, which made Dai relatively scared due to the fact that he will have to fight Issei in a week's time. Furthermore, Dai couldn't refuse or ask for more time as he was already under suspicion by the leaders, and anything that could expose him would ruin him even further. He had to accept the fight. Not to mention Cromcrouch mocked him for that. This was due to the fact that his lies will soon be exposed as his strength was not that strong. He hated his brother for putting him under the bus like that. If anything, everything he had built up will be gone just like that, and he will make him suffer during the fight. He vowed to find a way to take his power and make sure to silence him. So even now, are you going to stop us? Issei asked with annoyance. As Riaz looked away, she had to back down. Sergiches had told her that Nyx will be staying, and she can't stop her even if she wanted to. But what about Ingvald? Don't you care about her? He asked, which made everyone look at Issei again. She will use her for her own nefarious purposes. What will happen if something happens to her? She may even endanger her. Dai's words made both Ingvald and Valerie glare at him. Like I said, not my monkeys, not my circus. Issei spoke with a shrug, not caring for Ingvald or anyone, which made many horrified as he spoke while rubbing the bridge of his nose. If we are done, you can leave, and just think, why would she need Ingvald now? No one had any answer. As they all reluctantly left, he could see contempt in their eyes, especially his parents. They were not happy that one of their enemies is staying with them. Nyx looked at him and asked, Do you have to deal with this every day? Nyx's tone was full of surprise as Issei spoke with a shrug. Yep. It is nothing new for me. My parents always preferred my siblings over me. Issei's tone surprised the girls, especially Nyx, as Nyx held his hand, which made Issei smile in happiness. At least someone was there with him. Even the other girls felt sad for him, especially Athena and Morana, as Issei turned to them and spoke seriously. I believe that the house has enough rooms for all of you. Issei turned to each and every one of them and spoke. So I think you all should settle down. You will be here for a very long time, perhaps even forever. Issei spoke in a serious tone as the girls gave nods. Most of them have eyes that has lost their shine due to the leaders selling them off, as several of the girls left. 2 girls remained, and they were Sigvara Agars and Latia Astrid. What happened? Issei asked to the 2 girls, as Sigvara spoke with a bit of worry, as she asked, Will you take advantage of us? Issei looked at her and sighed. He couldn't blame her for having a question like that since she was his fiancée. He shook his head and spoke seriously. Look, you two, I don't take advantage of women, no matter what. If I would do the deed, it would be with the one I love. That is why, if anything, our relationship, if we have any, will be purely platonic. Issei's words surprised the girls. Is that clear? Issei asked seriously, to which the girls nodded in agreement as they headed to a random room that they will be choosing. They were smiling, as they were happy. They were now starting to believe the rumors about him were lies. Issei looked at Nyx as he spoke with a smile. Shall we, my goddess? Nyx smiled in response as she spoke. Yes. Both Nyx and Issei headed to Issei's room to sleep in one room. He would be sleeping in peace in the Haida residence after a very long time. The next day, Haida residence, 7:30 a.m. Issei and Nyx had agreed to sleep on the bed as Issei had a peaceful sleep. For a very long time, he was able to sleep peacefully in the house he had. He woke up. As he rubbed his eyes, he could see that Nyx had grabbed him like a teddy bear, not caring for anyone that sees them. Nyx. Issei looked at Nyx, who also woke up, rubbed her eyes, and spoke with a smile. Morning. Issei smiled at her. He did not mind if she slept close to him. After a few moments, they both woke up as they brushed their teeth and started to head down. He saw that the table was lively with everyone enjoying a meal like nothing ever happened. As Issei went down, they heard his footsteps, and immediately their lively mood went with it. They started to eat their food as if something was wrong. Issei and Nyx took their food and watched how the people did not even talk to them at all. Some were even giving them side glares as they knew that she was not welcome here, but couldn't say anything as Issei might do something really terrible. Issei sensed this. As Nyx looked at him, she was also feeling uncomfortable. He was having an unpleasant expression. He then spoke angrily. Look, if we are not welcome here, you can just say it. I don't appreciate you giving someone that actually cares for me such an attitude. Issei's words surprised everyone as Gore spoke seriously. We don't mind you being here. It's just that Issei got even more angry as he slammed the table and exclaimed. Just what? Nyx is a danger. Did she harm anyone in this house in the past 10 hours? Many were silent due to what Issei had spoke, to which Issei responded, That's what I thought. Issei looked at Nyx as he spoke. Come on, Nyx, it is clear that we are not welcome here and I believe we never will be. We can go eat in the room. Issei looked at Nyx, who looked at the family with a disappointed look. As Issei and Nyx took their plates and left the room, it was clear that they were not welcome here. Issei, wait, Mickey shouted, to which Issei looked at her in an annoyed look and responded, What? Issei looked at his mother dead in the eye, who flinched. He was not the same son she knew him as. She looked at him in shock to see how much he had changed in the past. He was not the same anymore, and messing with him could have dire consequences. Issei looked at her mother with no emotion. He would be lying if he felt any sort of love for her. Mickey spoke with a flinch. We just want you to sit with us, and Issei interrupted her words by speaking. And be riddled by glares, not a chance. If anything, I was always never welcome here, so you shouldn't be surprised by my current desire of not being here. Issei walked away, ignoring any of their pleas. The breakfast table was never the same as they all ate their food in complete and utter silence. Ever since Issei's change, things for the Haida family have gone from bad to worse. Seeing change, Nyx and Issei were in their room as they both were eating their food, to which Nyx asked with worry, Do they always treat you like this? Yeah, Issei's words surprised the primordial goddess. She looked pretty sad as Issei continued, If anything at this point, I am used to it, but even then, I am close to snapping if anything, and someone is going to get hurt really bad. Issei spoke with a serious tone, which made Nyx shiver. She was not worried for Guru and Mickey. No, she was worried that the one she cared about might fall into his anger. Issei, understanding this, spoke while keeping his hand on her own hand. I know you fear for what I will do, but you are one of the few that I care about. No matter what happens, I will not hurt you. Issei declared seriously, That is my word to you. Issei ended with a smile, which made Nyx happy. She smiled genuinely in response as they continued their meal in peace. Scene change. Nyx was walking through the corridor. She was going to get some foodstuff so that they could watch a movie without a problem. Nix, can you come here for a minute? Nix turned around the source of the voice, and this was revealed to be Gora, as she was not happy to see him. Along with him were Dee's Peerage, Gremory Peerage with Rias Gremory, who all looked at Nix, along with Dee and Ika. What do you want, mister? Nix spoke seriously and with some anger laced in her voice. Gora spoke in response. We just want to talk to you. It's about Issei. Nix widened her eyes as she then asked. What exactly do you want to talk to Issei about? Nix spoke in a neutral tone as Gora looked at Nix and spoke. We want you too. Nix kept her mouth on her hand as she was hearing what his father was telling her. Tears started to fall from her eyes. Meanwhile, Issei was walking from getting some Diet Coke. He entered his room to see Nix absent. He worriedly went outside as he saw Nix on her knees crying. He glared at the ones that did this. If he was not furious on his parents before, he was certainly now. What did you tell her, father? Issei exclaimed in fury. Guru and the others were fearful since Issei was getting angrier every second. Ice, am I really the one ruining your relationship with your family? Nix spoke with sniffles. He widened his eyes, in shock. His shock changed into outrage this time. He understood what they must have told Nix, and he clenched his fist in rage. Issei's hair covered his face. He looked at his father, walking slowly towards his father. Before anyone could react, Issei gave Goro a punch to the face that sent him flying. Goro? Miki shouted, rushing to her husband as he saw that he had a broken nose. I can't believe you, Issei spoke with a low tone, masking his anger. I can't believe I called someone like you my father. Issei put an emphasis on my. He despised what his father did. Nix was worried. She had never seen Issei angry, but now she knew how much damage his parents, or should she say, Soggled parents did to him. You scum, Issei dashed to his father, and before anyone could react, he picked his father up by the throat and started choking him. He was struggling to keep up with his anger. What did she do to you? She was minding her own business. Issei's pent-up anger was being completely released. None dared to make a move. Issei was releasing his aura that was nearly suffocating everyone, except Nix. Even the new guests were terrified and decided to stay up. Ingvild also agreed to stay up, not wanting to get involved with anything Dee wanted, but she was terrified of what might happen. Only Athena was okay, but she was worried about what Issei might do. Issei slammed him to the ground, making him cough up. The whole ground beneath them shattered. As he looked to die, he was responsible for every single suffering in his life. I was scared shitless. He has never experienced his brother's wrath before, and now he felt like he was done for. Now you see, this is what happens when you piss off a dragon. I can only pray for your survival. Nope, just kidding. Hope you die a horrible death, die Heidu. Crom mentally told his host in a mocking tone. He enjoyed seeing him in this state. I swear to I will make your life as miserable as possible. Once the duel begins, I will destroy you to the very core, just like I am going to do with this sorry excuse of a father as a scream to die, who fell on the ground, fearful of what might happen. He couldn't move due to being paralyzed by fear. Ika was on her knees. The aura was suffocating enough, but combined with the fact that he threatened his own brother, scared her to even think properly. The same could be said for the rest. Issei started to slam him to the ground repeatedly, each blow destroying some of his bones. He was screaming in pain. His spectacles were shattered completely due to the blows. Goro screamed in pain as he had severe bone damage and internal bleeding. He then sat on him and started punching him in a rapid-fire manner. Issei did not stop. All that anger, all that rage was being shown. He has had enough of dealing with his parents' nonsense. Time after time, he tried proving to his parents that he could be a capable man, a man that would handle himself no matter what he does. But all he got was aggression and hatred. Why? I was always the prodigious child. He always got good grades, got good sports results, earned trophies, thus he was like the golden child, while Lake was considered the useless child or the black sheep. Even his sister Ik could be considered as such. The lies only made it worse. He was not even looked at by his own family. His family hated his existence, and the supernatural made his life 100 times worse, no matter where he went. All he got was looks of hate and disgust, and this was common in the underworld, mostly the Gremry territory. He looked at his father and kept punching. Echoes of his memories were running in his mind. Punch. I was ignored because of Dai. You did nothing for me. Punch. You didn't even love me because I couldn't get prestige for your family. Punch. You didn't even try to help when I needed you the most. Punch. Why? Punch. Why? Punch. Why? Issei continued his barrage of punches on his father. He did this for 2 minutes. He then got up as blood was in his hands and some of his face and clothes as he spoke with a satisfied tone. That felt good. Issei was suddenly bombarded with voices from the past hosts. Make them suffer. Abusers and tormentors like him should die. They should be plunged into the deepest depths of purgatory. They should have never been kept alive for so long. Issei then activated his boosted gear and spoke. Who shall awaken? Issei was surrounded with green orbs as they all demand Issei to start activating the Juggernaut drive. The heavenly dragon who has stolen the principles of domination from God. Issei's body was starting to glow in a balance breaker as he continued. I laugh at the infinite and fret at the dream. Issei's armor started to grow draconic. Just as he was about to say the next part, he felt someone else shout. Issei, they are not worth it. Issei turned his attention to Nyx as she saw her in tears. He then spoke. Nyx, it's me. I know you are mad, but I don't want to lose you. They are not worth the effort, so please stop. As says stop the chant. As he took a deep breath, he looked at Nyx. Seeing her sad was the only thing that convinced him to stop. He promised that he will never do anything that would make her sad. Keep this in mind, Dai. I will expose you in front of the whole world, that is my promise to you. And like I said before, I will make sure to make our fight as miserable as possible for you, Brother Issei shouted as he got up from his father, whose face was barely recognizable. Dai was fearful of what Issei will do to him, as he wondered what Issei had planned for him. As one might say, the anticipation of a threat is worse than the threat itself. He looked at the others. They were still shivering in fear, unable to do anything, frozen completely due to their fear. He then exclaimed coldly and seriously, try a stunt like this again, and you will meet a far worse fate than this man. Issei walked away as he gave them a side glare. They were frozen in fear, and they remained that way until they decided to take Guru to the hospital. Issei and Nyx left the room, but not before the primordial goddess of darkness spoke coldly. You should be ashamed of yourselves. They left the room. Today was a day of enjoyment, but these morons ruined it for them. Scene change. Time skip. The next day, unknown location, 9:30 a.m. Issei and Nyx headed to Malak's base. There they were called due to Malak finding something important. As they entered in, they were greeted by Grievous, Malak, Kalani, Elizabeth, Gondola and Artemis. Lord Issei, I am glad you made it. Elizabeth spoke with a greeting smile. I would. You told me that there was something important, so what's the matter? How about I show you instead of telling you this? Malak pointed to 2 Bacta tanks, which were blurred to not show the bodies. The liquid was too deep for that. Just imagine the liquid to be darkened. Just imagine the liquid to be darkened. Bacta tanks, did something happen? Issei asked with concern, to which Malak gave a nod. You see, Issei, these tanks house the now deceased descendants of Asmodeus and Beelzebub. Malak ended the words as Issei and Nyx were surprised by this. He then asked, are they half-bloods, like Ingvald and Valerie? Malak gave a nod. Kalani then came in with the statistics. But by the time we found him, they were long dead, decomposing. When we found them, Issei was surprised by this. However, he should have expected this. Case in point, both Ingvald and Valerie were revealed to be descendants of Lucifer and Leviathan, respectively, so it would make sense that even Asmodeus and Beelzebub would have a half-blood descendants like them. How long were they dead for? Issei asked. He then continued, because if I remember, devils live for 10,000 years. This includes even half-bloods as well. As Kalani responded, 10 years to be exact. It was unknown how they were killed. Whoever did it must have found a way to do so. Kalani spoke with an interested tone as he decided to research their bodies since there was no trace of them being killed. Issei spoke while rubbing his chin as Nix looked at him and asked, "So what do you plan on doing?" Issei looked at her and smiled as he gave her a nod as he looked at Kalani and commanded, "Kalani, give me a status report on who these two bodies were." Kalani nodded and spoke. "Both the bodies are estimated to be aged around 100 plus years. Since they were devils, there have been no records in any hospitals of the human world. One of the bodies' genetics dates back to Rome, while the other is American. And the genders are identified to be female." Issei widened his eyes in surprise, with Nix giving him a sweet smile as she speaks. "So were you going to revive them, Ice?" "Because they were female." Issei shook his head as he responded. "Nope. I believe they will be useful for my plans." Issei spoke with a smile, but internally he was worried for some reason. He felt like if he makes a mistake, then he would be done for. But Nix spoke while Issei looked at the girls. Artemis then asked, "Lord Issei, what will you do now?" Elizabeth then spoke next. "How would you revive them?" Elizabeth trailed off, after which she widened her eyes as she spoke. "Don't tell me you will use the Sephiroth growl." Issei gave her a nod and brought out the Holy Grail in his hands. Everyone looked at it and wondered what Issei will do next. Using the Holy Grail, he focused by closing his eyes. He was searching for souls. Elizabeth then asks, "What is he doing?" Gondal responded, looking at her, "He is looking for souls, Elizabeth, using that he will try to locate their souls." This went on for a while, after which he opened his eyes and exclaimed, "Pound it!" This caused them to approach him, and he then transferred their souls to their current bodies. He made sure to get them right, due to Kalani guiding him which bodies have the souls. It was a good thing that the souls were not in purgatory, otherwise saving them would be next to impossible. Issei spoke with a happy tone, remembering how difficult it was to save Persephone. "Purgatory?" Nix asked in confusion, as Issei responded, "A different dimension, where there is no escape. Usually that's what happens to souls that have been destroyed." Persephone was right there. "Wait, Lady Persephone is alive," Artemis exclaimed in surprise, to which Issei nodded in response. Artemis then asked how. "Why did you never tell us?" "Simple, you never ask." Issei spoke with a mocking smile, to which the goddess of Hunt sweat drops. Seen this as Issei looked at the souls and commanded Kalani, "Report to me, when they wake up. I would love to hear their story." Kalani nods as Issei and Nix leave with Artemis, Malik, Gondolin, Elizabeth following them. "Oh, speaking of which, have you seen Valerie?" Issei asked, wondering where his spy was. He hasn't heard from her, and he wondered if she was still alive or dead. "I asked her to spy on Team/Dog. She has been reporting everything to me, Lord Issei." Gondal spoke in response as Issei nods. "She is not to be trusted, Gondal. If she does anything that you do not ask her to do, teleport her to me without fail. I will deal with her personally." Issei spoke seriously and coldly, to which Gondal nodded in agreement. In there, Gondal was surprised. She came to know of Artemis and Elizabeth willingly joining with Issei, and then was surprised by the sheer loyalty these two possessed. She had heard of what Zeus did as he spoke in the stead of the other leaders, and like many others, she was disgusted. She started to have doubts whether Odin would also do the same. "As you wish, Lord Issei," Gondal spoke with a smile before teleporting back to Asgard to Krieg Valander. Issei then turned to Elizabeth and Artemis and gave them the respective commands. "Keep in mind, you must still spy for me and the factions. I understand that you do not like them anymore, but report them to me, anything you find, anything off-biting you might find." Issei spoke seriously. "Make sure to maintain an aggressive relationship with the leaders, being cold and hostile to only them while maintaining a normal relationship with the rest. No one should know that you are with me." Both the girls gave a nod and spoke in unison in admiration. "As you wish, Lord Issei." Both girls teleported back to their respective factions. Issei couldn't make a mistake, especially if the factions have a suspicion on the girls. He had to maintain their relationship. As with Artemis, she still has a relationship with her twin brother Apollo. "So what do you want me to do?" Malik asked Issei, to which Issei responded, "For now, we won't be attacking the factions. Instead, we will break the morale of the factions. After Dai is exposed, it will cause chaos everywhere. Civil war, distrust, disfath, you name it. People will refuse to believe anyone, especially their leaders. The leaders will try to quell the chaos, and if anything, there is no telling what the faction leaders will do, but all we know, they will be in despair. Issei spoke with a sadistic grin as Nix and Malik nodded. As Issei looked at Malik and asked, Malik, make sure that when I expose them in the fight, you step in and mock the leaders right after that. After all, you are the face of this army, so humiliate them and harass them at every step. Give me a heads up when it is done, alright? Issei spoke, to which Malik nodded in agreement. As you wish. Malik heads inside, leaving Issei and Nix and Issei alone, leaving nothing left. They teleported back to the Haida residence, where no one dared to ask them anything for fear of what would happen. Scene change. Haida residence, 11 a.m. I was fearful. Yesterday's encounter with Issei showed that he was done being nice. He was afraid of what might happen next. He lied on the bed of his room, seeing that there was nothing that could be done. The leaders believed in him, that he would fight and win against Issei. He was basically their last and only hope. I told you that one day, your time might come, Decrum spoke in a mocking tone, his sacred gear manifested in front of Haida. No, no, no. This can't be happening. D exclaimed in terror. While shivering, he remembered his brother's words of making his life as miserable as possible. You really are a disgrace of not only a dragon, no, forget a dragon. Crum spoke coldly, venom dipped inside of his voice. There was no one in his world that he would hate more than Dai. He regretted his actions that caused him to be sealed in the sacred gear. No, calling you a dragon is a disgrace to them. You are a disgrace and a pathetic human being. I gritted his teeth in anger as he exclaimed, I have taken everything my brother has worked hard for. All my success came off from him. Unbeknownst to D, someone was hearing him, and Vold was the one I enjoyed taking away from him. A beautiful girl like her doesn't deserve to be near him. D's voice was loud enough for someone to hear him as he continued to speak. All my life, I have taken everything from him, his loves, his achievements, and everything else. D spoke with a mad smile. He then continued, it was easy for Ingvild and everyone else to believe my lies because of my reputation. Even Riaz herself fell for my lies. And the best part is that had no choice but to accept defeat since no one will believe him. You are a sick bastard, Dai. Only 6 days remain. Enjoy your last days of glory. Crom spoke coldly as he disconnected the connection. Dai lost his smile and got annoyed by his words when he heard something falling. Going to check outside, as he saw, he was horrified. It was Ingvild with a look of shock and horror. She knew about the truth, but she was not expecting Dai to be this fallen. She hated him even more. Ingvild too can explain. Dai spoke with a nervous tone. He was afraid that she must have heard. He put his hand forward as she flicked it away. I can't believe you. Ingvild spoke with a disbelieving tone before changing into fury. He saved me. He always did. He was my hero. Not you, Dai, and you did this for everyone. You took his life away when he was forced to turn a blind eye to some of your deeds. Ingvild screamed at D, who was fearful. Crom was surprised yet happy. He was not expecting D to get karma this early. For him it was a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. No, Ingvild, wait, please, D begged his queen to stop as Ingvild shouted with teary eyes. He loved me, D. Couldn't you be a little selfless and keep him happy? But no. You didn't even love me. I was nothing but a mere object for you, wasn't I? Ingvild ended with a mocking tone, which made Dai shiver in fear. Another of his reality was being displayed. No, that's not true, I love you. I saved you from Nyx. And D tried to reason with Ingvild only for her to speak in a cold tone while wiping her tears. Save it for someone that believes your lies, D. And I am telling this to everyone. Whether they believe it or not is up to them. Then I won't let you. D dashed in front of Ingvild, ready to take her down, as Ingvild created a magic barrier to protect herself as she gritted her teeth in fury. She hated herself more than she hated D. The man in front of her would take her life if whenever he felt convenient to do so. She gritted her teeth. As she watched from the corner of AI, she saw Issei drinking his can of Diet Coke, as he watched while shaking his head in disappointment. Do you hate me that much? Ingvild thought in sadness. She glared at Dai with hate, Issei did not hesitate to save her as he watched the scene, wondering what will happen next. Ingvald reflected D's punch like it was nothing. D was ready to activate his own sacred gear, ready to take down his queen, but Ingvald started to sing, and this time, she directed her sacred gear, Narakiri's power, towards Dai, making him scream in pain as it disappeared. Even Crom gritted his teeth in pain, but he had to hold himself on his own. Moments later, seeing him in a weakened state, she stopped singing. She glared at D as she spoke in a cold tone. I am telling this to everyone whether you like it or not. D was horrified at what would happen next. However, they both heard clapping. It was revealed to be Issei as he spoke in the background after stopping to clap. That won't be necessary, Ingvald and D watched Issei having a smile as he looked at her. Ingvald retorted in a desperate manner, but this fraud must be exposed. Issei shook his head as he spoke. No matter how much you scream, shout, or even beg, no one is going to believe you. His lies have been affected by the faction leaders, and the others. Asil sighed as he looked at her. No one is going to even hear you out. Ingvald got angry as she clenched her fists in anger and helplessness. Dai had the audacity to open his mouth as he spoke in a mocking tone. You really thought they would believe you? Both Ingvald and Issei looked at D. With Ingvald getting angry, D then spoke with a mocking grin. No matter what you do, they will even hate you just like they hate my disgrace of an older brother. Ingvald slapped him so hard that his tooth nearly broke. She then spoke in an aggressive tone. You sick bastard. Ingvald was ready to dish out another blow, but Issei kept his hand on her and responded in a cold yet mocking tone. 6 days, that's all you have. Enjoy the fame you never deserved, because once I show the whole world what kind of a person you are, you will lose everything. I will promise you that. Dai hideout. Issei walked away with Inkwell trailing behind him. I was left horrified at what would happen. What Issei had planned for him still terrified him. Why did he challenge him? There was no way of escaping, not that he had any. He feared what would happen next. His time was up. He did not know if he will have a life if the truth is revealed, since they would most likely either imprison him or worse, execute him completely. Meanwhile, Issei and Ingvald were in a different room as he spoke. I am honestly surprised you actually managed to defend yourself. Issei spoke with a mocking tone. I thought you would expect me to save you, but you showed that he was nothing but a weakling. Well, at least you opened your eyes and now know what to do. Issei spoke with a shrug as he walked away. Can I talk to you? Ingvald spoke while grabbing his hand as she did not know what Issei would do. However, he just ignored her completely. Issei, please hear me out. I beg you. Ingvald shouted as she was persistent. In response, Issei flung his hand, breaking her grip as he responded. No. I don't want to hear you out, Ingvald. Issei glared at her. Sure, he may comparatively hate her slightly less compared to what he does for Riaz and the other girls, but he still despises her. Look, just because you know the truth or even want to reveal the truth, do you think that I will magically forgive you? Do you think I will forget how you have treated me? Never, because nothing is going to be forgotten, and I will never forget how you treated me like garbage because of a bastard I called a brother. Issei yelled at her, making her flinch, but she stood her ground. She was crying, but despite the tears, she still stood her ground. Then what do you want me to do? Tell me, what do you want me to do? I know what I did was wrong. Then tell me, how do I fix it? Ingvald shouted. She was not going to fall to the ground. Issei was taken aback. He was left speechless as she continued to speak. You are right. I did not treat you well. I treated you worse than scum. So tell me, what should I do? I want to stay by your side, so what should I do to regain your faith? Tell me, Ingvald shouted with tears falling from her eyes. She was not going to back down. Never again dies. Lies had broken a relationship that would have been the light of Issei's life. So you are willing to do anything? Issei asked in a cold tone, still trying to process everything on what had happened. Anything I am ready to do. I will prove to you that I am worthy of staying by your side, Ingvald exclaimed in a strong tone. She was not going to be fooled or manipulated ever again. Let's see if your words are as true as your actions. Issei spoke in a cold tone as he walked away since he had other work to do. Ingvald looked at Issei walking away. She was determined to regain Essie's trust no matter what she needs to do, and she will succeed no matter what happens. Scene change. Unknown location, 5:30 p.m. Essie and Nix, along with Artemis and Elizabeth, were present as they all head to their hideout. They were called by Kalani, as he had called them to see the back-to tanks. The girls had been given regular full-sleeved shirts and tights that wound their skin tightly. "Ugh, where are we?" One of the girls spoke in confusion. She was described to be an extremely beautiful woman with long lavender hair, including eyelashes and eyebrows, which may appear blue or white depending on the surrounding lighting. Her eyes were lavender in color, seemingly reflecting the 7 prismatic colors. "I don't know. Last I remember a fallen angel ambushed and killed me," the other girl spoke in a sad tone. She was a beautiful girl with thigh-length pink hair that had a medium clump hanging over the right side of her forehead, dark purple eyes, an extremely curvaceous body, ridiculously large breasts, and fine hips. She was a beautiful girl with thigh-length pink hair that had a medium clump hanging over the right side of her forehead, dark purple eyes, an extremely curvaceous body, ridiculously large breasts, and fine hips. The battle droid then showed up with the statistics as he spoke. "Our Lord managed to bring you back to life." The B1 spoke in a neutral tone. The girls were surprised by this. They looked at the droid and realized that they must have been dead for a very long time, judging by the fact that the droid seemed futuristic. "Can we meet this lord of yours?" the purple-haired girl asked. She wondered who this man was and what he is capable of, and if he was able to bring them back from the dead, he has got to be strong. Either way, both the girls were grateful to whoever this lord is. As the droid came to which the battle droid responded, "General." It was Kalani that came close to the girls and spoke with a cheerful tone. "Then you are in luck. He is coming to our base. I wouldn't wake up if I were you. Your bodies still need to recover." Both girls nodded in agreement. As Issei along with the primordial goddess Nyx showed up, beside her were Elizabeth and Artemis. As Artemis asked, "Lord Issei, are these the Satan descendants?" Artemis asked, as Issei gave them a nod. "So he is their lord." Both the girls, though looking at Issei in surprise, he seemed to be decently dressed and decent looking, although they know firsthand how looks can be deceiving, since they were both killed by fallen angels. "Greetings, my name is Issei Haidu, and I am the leader of this organization." Issei greeted the two girls with a smile as they noticed that the man was not deceiving them in any way. Issei took a seat nearby. As he spoke, "These are my allies. I think you have met Kalani, right?" Issei pointed to the droid general who bowed in greeting. "The others are Artemis, goddess of hunt, Elizabeth, the dark angel, Elizabeth, lions, and finally the primordial goddess of darkness, Nyx." "Hello?" Elizabeth greeted cheerfully. "It is a pleasure to meet the descendants of Asmodeus and Beelzebub." Artemis spoke with a respectful smile. "Nice to meet you too." Nyx greeted them with her own smile. They were interested in seeing them. Both girls were on guard hearing that their ally is an angel. The girls on Issei's side were saddened seeing this, but had an understanding as to why this is happening. Seeing this, Asil sighed and spoke. "None of us are your enemies. Dark angels are not like traditional angels or even fallen angels. They are a unique species that comes from angels, and they are much stronger than regular ones." Asil explained. As he went into a more detailed explanation, he also revealed that Elizabeth is the first archangel, which made her smile with gratitude. "I see," the purple-haired girl spoke. "I apologize for being on guard." "No worries. It's all right. I will catch you guys with what happened while you two were dead." Issei explained everything to the girls from the Quatridi, to the Cow's Brigade, to Trahixa, to Malik, as he revealed that they are the faction that has been attacking the leaders. The girls took a while to process the information. As they nodded in acceptance, once they understood this, they were grateful to Issei and viewed him as his savior. Issei then asked. He respected their privacy and decided to only revive them instead of checking their lives. "Can I get your names?" The girls nodded in acceptance as the first one spoke. "My name is Quinila Asmodeus, the descendant of Asmodeus." The purple-haired girl spoke respectfully with a smile. "And my name is Charlotte Beelzebub. It is nice to meet you." The descendant of Beelzebub spoke cheerfully with a smile. "I see. So do you want to join my faction?" Issei asked. As the girls seemed reluctant, they did not want to turn on their families, as issei spoke. Look, how about I show you the factions for what they really are? Issei transferred memories of his life to the girls. As they both widened their eyes in shock, they were devastated that their savior had to go through this condition. Quinella clenched the sheets of her bed with anger, while tears fell from her eyes. While Charlotte was devastated, she was profusely crying. She could not imagine her savior going through all this. They hated what the factions had become, as Charlotte spoke with sadness in her voice. Oh, could they do this to someone like you? As he spoke with a sigh. Even his allies were not happy with his past. They were furious. They often believed the lies of my younger brother, Dai do. Essie's tone was filled with disgust, and now they expect me to help despite everything they did to me. This is what the devil faction has become, nothing but selfish, narcissistic people. Issei declared. As the girls became saddened by this, they owed Issei a lot, and he did not lie to them in any way. The devils will only see you as a breeding tool. Since the two of you hold the genes of Satan's, they will marry you off to an heir who will probably only want you for your bodies. Or worse, my brother, who might do the same. Issei spoke with sadness. He refused to lie to his allies and only lied to those he deemed as his enemies, mostly the faction leaders. So do you wish to join me now, or you can go back to the devils who will only see you as a breeding tool? And even the Satans can't do anything since the council thinks that they control more power than them. Asil spoke with a serious tone. He gave them a choice and did not force them, which surprised Artemis and Elizabeth, but they eventually realized that they were blinded by loyalty. Their lord opened eyes. Had they not listened to him, they would have never realized the truth of their factions. They were eternally grateful to him. The girls looked at his say and spoke. With hesitation, they dreaded the fact that the devils will marry them to someone they don't even know, and even go so far as to lie to them. We accept. Both the girls exclaimed without hesitation, we accept joining this faction over the devils. I would rather die than love a man that doesn't love me and only sees me as an object or as a breeding stock. Quinella spoke with disgust, to which Charlotte agreed to her fellow descendants' words. Well, in that case, welcome to my faction. Issei spoke with a smile, to which the girls nodded in agreement. So what do you ask us to do? Quinella spoke with a respectful tone as Issei spoke. Recover your strength. It will at least take a day of rest to do so. Take your time, because after that, you will be playing a role in my war against the factions. Issei spoke seriously as the girls nodded. The girls then went off to sleep as the others walked outside the medical room so as to prepare for his next plan. Chapter 10, Factions Situation. The next day, 5 days before the fight, Lucifed, Underworld, 9:30 a.m. Sursix was pacing around the room. He remembered how Issei dealt with Ajuka. He still had fears of what Issei had done to him, and refused to tell anyone about it. What's worse was that Sixperia and Latia refused to come to the Devil's Society. To them, they were sold to Issei to save their skins, and they decided to not contact anyone. Lord and Lady were devastated when they heard that their daughter refused to come back to them. They blamed the Satans for this and are threatening to sever ties if their daughter does not come back. Sergic has gritted his teeth. He was anything but happy with this as he knew that Issei was not someone to be messed with. He was strong enough to deal with a super devil and a high god class being like it was nothing. But despite this and the doubts he had recently, he still believed that his future brother-in-law, Issei's own brother, will defeat him and get him to his side. Like always, he will solve the problems that they created. Moments later, Graphia had teleported inside. She needed to tell him something important. Lord Sergiches, I have something to ask. Graphia spoke in a neutral tone as Sergich's anger went off and changed into a worried smile. Is something wrong? Sergiches asked. What do you think will happen in the fight? Graphia asked with worry. She, like her husband, was also having doubts. I believe Dai will win. Sergiches spoke with assurance. However, Graphia could sense some opposition to his very assurance as she asked. But you are not so sure of this, right? Sergiches looked away as he spoke. I have doubts, Graphia. Honestly, I am not so sure now. Sergich's words made Graphia worried. Hydu was able to be strong enough to make Ajuka and Lord Zeus terrified of him. He does what he feels like, and taking them both down seems to be heavenly dragon level, and that was what I fear. Hydu is too strong, so I doubt I would be able to take him. If anything, he might be the strongest opponent I would face. Sergic's tone was serious as Graphia was now concerned as she spoke with worry. So will I do it? Graphia asked. We all saw him as the weak and liar brother of the pillar, but now he has become strong enough to take down Lord Ajuka and Lord Zeus. That is exactly why I am concerned, Graphia. Let's just hope that D is able to pull a miracle like he usually does, Sergius spoke, to which Graphia nodded as she then teleported out of the castle with Sergius once again being frustrated remembering what had happened. I hope you win, Dai. You are our last hope in getting your brother to our side. Sergius spoke with horror and fear. He couldn't imagine what would happen if Dai would lose. Heaven, 9:30 a.m. Michael, Uriel and Raphael were discussing on the fight that would happen in the next 5 days as Gabriel couldn't come due to her terrible condition. It only worsened when she had heard that Elizabeth and Morana were sold to issei, thanks to Zeus. She blamed Michael for letting this happen. Elizabeth had come back, but Morana did not, as she was happy that one of them chose to come back. Unbeknownst to anyone, Elizabeth only came back due to issei convincing her to do so. So only 5 days remain. Michael spoke, trying to start up a conversation. As Uriel and Raphael spoke, they weren't happy with Michael not standing up for his angels. Indeed there is, so what now? Raphael looked at his leader, as he did not want to converse with him. Do you think D will win? Uriel asked. He was having doubts in his ability, as Michael shook his head and spoke. Are you having doubts, brother? Michael spoke in concern, to which Uriel responded seriously. No. What Dido did in the meeting, he released Nyx and removed the seals. He then did something to Lord Beelzebub and Lord Zeus and dared us to do something about it. Raphael agreed to Uriel's words as Michael spoke with confidence. I will win, he must win, otherwise our faction is done for. Uriel and Raphael only looked and shook their heads. You are right, brother, our faction will be really done for, Uriel spoke. As they both then teleported out of there, Michael waved them goodbye as the men left. Elizabeth was spying on them, as she thought. I must report this to Lord. Say Elizabeth flew from there while using her disguised angel wings. Scene change. Underworld Hospital, 9:30 a.m. Azazel, how have you been doing? Shemhes. I spoke with happiness in his voice. He approached Azazel, who had a sad look on his face. Tell me, Shemhes. Barakriel is gone. Azazel spoke. His tone was full of sadness and despair. Shemhes. I could only nod in response. I see. Azazel clenched the sheets of his bed. He had just woken up from his coma. He was going to make Malak pay for killing one of his friends one day. Arrest? Azazel asked, to which Shemhazai responded truthfully. Demodog is still being healed up. They are in a comatose state. Same goes for most of the cadres. You were the first to wake up. Azazel gritted his teeth in fury, not happy with what happened, as he spoke. When will he see that innocents are suffering? Has he not had enough? Azazel exclaimed in despair. To him Asahi was being selfish and not helping them. He hated his selfish nature along with his perversion, which he believed was too much. Shemahazia then spoke in a serious tone. I think a lot of things you should know. Shemahazia spoke as Azazel widened his eyes. He then asked in an annoyed tone, What did I miss? Shemhazai had no choice but to reveal everything that had happened while he was in comatose. Damn it! Couldn't you be against this? Shemhazai, Azazel shouted, not happy with what he heard. If he was not hospitalized, he would have punched the table. He was too weak to do anything and too hospitalized as well. No hairdo wants to challenge the pillar. This is our only chance of ever getting his help. Azazel rubs his forehead in annoyance and speaks, Well, shoot, our faction has already close to become fallen in a literal way. All we can do is hope that he wins. His tone was full of annoyance as Shemhazai nodded. His last hope was Dai winning, else it was game over for this alliance and the leaders. Scene change. Theokai Territory, Kyoto, 9:30 a.m. Isaka and Kunu were having their breakfast as they were conversing on the latest events that have been happening, with Kunu asking, Mother, can I ask you something? Kunu asked, to which Yusaku nodded and smiled at her daughter. When will Dai come to visit us? Yusaku did not know what to answer, as she responded in a sad tone, he has been very busy due to the fight his brother challenged him to. Kunu widened her eyes, she remembered the challenge Issei had given his brother to do so. But why? Dai has been a nice man, why does his brother want to hog whatever he does so much? Kunu spoke with disgust as Yusaku shook her head in response. I don't know, my dear, he was always a jealous man, but now he has gone too far. Yusaku spoke with disgust as she hated Issei's new attitude. She always hated Issei before due to what Dai had told her about him. However, either Yusaku nor Kunu knew that all Dai spoke were lies. They don't even know that they couldn't sense Dai being deceitful. I hope Dai wins this fight because I can't hope that Issei wins because if he does, we are done for. Kunu spoke with slight hope, yet there was slight fear in her voice. Malak's attacks had devastated all factions, and Kunu feared that her faction might fall next. Yes, I believe that Dai needs to win, he must win, otherwise everything will be lost. Yusaku spoke sadly with downcast eyes as she did not hide everything from her daughter, with Kunu speaking in a cheerful tone. Don't worry, mother, Dai will win this. He will. Kunu spoke hoping that her future father figure would win this fight as Yusaku put her hand on Kunu's cheek and spoke with a smile. Yes, he will. Kunu smiled in response as they continued to have their breakfast. Scene change, Asgard, 9:30 a.m. The All-Father, Odin, was watching the scene in sadness as he was with Gondel, Thor, and Frigg. So you have heard right? Odin asked, looking at his wife, son, and trusted Valkyrie. Indeed, we have, Odin, Frigg responded, not happy with the news. She was aware of Issei's challenge and how strong the man had become. So, father, what should we do? Thor asked. He did not want to risk provoking the Red Dragon Emperor. I was going to put some seals in the match to weaken Haidu's power. Odin's words caused many to widen their eyes in shock. Even inner Gondel was herself shocked at this. While Gondel pretended to be shocked, she knew Odin was not to be trusted. You see now, Gondel, that's your All-Father, who is willing to even cheat to do this. Gondel spoke to her inner self, who was shocked at all this. She couldn't believe Odin would even think of such a thing. She knew he was perverted, but he was never deceiving, as Odin then continued, but then I heard that the Red Dragon has eyes and ears everywhere. If he comes to know of this, who knows what he will do to us? Odin spoke with worry as Thor and the others breathed a sigh of relief with the god of thunder speaking. And we don't even know who they are. I wish we find them as soon as possible. Before it is too late, Thor spoke with frustration as Gondel internally smirked, much to her inner self's horror, thinking, it's a shame that you don't even know that one of them is right in front of you. Gondel looked at the scene in interest as she asked, pretending to be worried. Oh, father, what should we do? Odin looked at her and responded, we have no choice. We must believe and die. He is our last and only hope. Odin spoke with fragrant, or agreeing. Gondel then internally smirked. Such a shame that your hope is a lie. Gondel enjoyed seeing the scene as she sensed that they were starting to become even more desperate. In there, Gondola knew that I would use, but at the same time, she doubted Odin, knowing that he wouldn't hesitate to deceive if need be. Scene change. Olympus, 9:30 a.m. Zeus was sitting angrily on his throne. He was unhappy with what his say did. All the Olympians either loathe him or dislike him for his actions. The ones that hate him the most were Leto, Artemis's mother, and Apollo, her twin brother. Both of them blamed Zeus for losing their daughter-sister for his actions. You hide it, Zeus angrily yelled. His only hope was for that boy Dai to win, otherwise he would lose both of his daughters permanently. His reputation, even among the faction leaders, is at an all-time low since many blame him for them losing their loved ones, or in Michael's case, his angels. He was surprised when Artemis came back, as she responded in a cold manner to him and most of the Olympians, except for Leto and Apollo, both of whom she was the same, like before, with her being cordial towards only the two of them. I hope that kid wins, otherwise I would lose my girls to the Red Dragon, Zeus declared as he knew that nothing was going to happen. He remembered what Hydu did to him, and how powerless he was when he fought against him in the dimension created by Dimension Lost. He couldn't use his powers to defend himself due to him using God's Slayer magic. Unbeknownst to him, Artemis was watching him. She couldn't help but be disgusted to think that her father was no different from most men. She hated what he has become, but at the same time, she was grateful to his issei for making her realize that even women can be like that, as she remembered how the DXD girls were charmed by a man by his looks. "Oh, how much I am going to watch you suffer, father," Artemis muttered coldly. As she walked away, she was planning to ask Issei whether he could spare her mother or brother, but either way, even if she doesn't, it would be fine. Scene change. Mount Kailash, 9:30 a.m. In one of the coldest regions of Tibet lies the location of the Hindu faction, one of the strongest and potentially the second strongest faction to ever exist, as Indra and the Trimurti discussed the matchup against Issei and Dai Hayadu. "So that brat thinks he can win, he is in for a big disappointment," Indra spoke with a mocking tone, as Vishnu retorted, who was described to be a green-skinned human, almost the height of Shiva. He is considered to be on par with Shiva and Brahma. He has limitless bottomless eyes just like Shiva and has superiority, which made many lower beings respect him, unlike Shiva that made people terrified. But even then, you cannot deny that Hayadu has become strong. Vishnu's words made Indra not happy, but he had to agree that Asahi had become strong enough to toy with one of the super devils, like he was nothing. "So what should we do?" Brahma asked. He was described to be an old man that had a beard similar to that of Adan, and unlike Shiva or Vishnu, he did not seem to be a middle school child. He was much taller, however. Like the other gods, he has limitless bottomless eyes just like Shiva and Vishnu, and has superiority, which made many lower beings respect and be terrified of him. "I don't know, even my magic cannot kill Malik, he is strong enough to even counter my own magic." Shiva spoke with worry and anger. He remembered Malik telling him that he was one of the few to give him a challenge so far, which made the bald man grin in excitement. "I think we should hope that Hayadu desires to help us." Vishnu spoke with a serious tone, and like his fellow gods, he wondered what will convince Issei to help them. He remembered that he was not someone to be taken lightly. "Either way, that brat Dai will beat Hayadu." Indra spoke with a confident tone, to which Shiva and the other gods only shook their head. Something told them that it was going to be very wrong in the future. They saw a vision of the future where Malik reigned supreme, wiping out everyone in his path as a shadow looms over him. They had a feeling that Malik might not even be the supreme leader of this new robot faction. But they needed to discern this vision before they could even decide to tell it to their fellow factions or not. Either way, if they had to stand a chance against Malik, they had to find a way to counter the anti-magic robot army he has procured. Scene change. Hayadu residence, 12:30 p.m. Sekiruuyetei was walking across the Hayadu residence. She did not want to talk to her fellow devils since her state of mind was not in the right. This was because Ajuka had compromised her with the issei Hayadu. She was not going to lie. She was angry that she was engaged without her consent, or worse, she was engaged to the brother of Dai, just so that the devil faction could prosper. She never knew what Issei was really like, and like Latia, she has never officially met him until 2 days ago. She saw his character. He enjoyed tormenting the factions and saw his hatred for them. She always wondered why, as due to the fact that he did not hesitate to torment Ajuka and Zeus without any problems. Furthermore, to her, Issei did not show any hatred towards her or Latia. He even stated that he was not going to take advantage of them, which destroyed any rumors of them, stating that he was a pervert. They were right in not believing them. Sniff, sniff. Sekiruuyetei heard some sniffles as she turned around to see a room, as she heard crying. "Who is crying?" Sekiruuyetei looked around. As she looked around, she saw her friend, who was devastated, sitting beside none other than goddess Athena, from where the crying came from. Sekiruuyetei went inside as she was greeted by an extremely sad Lasha. She was wearing a regular gown. She no longer wore her makeup or even had the eyes she usually did. She remembered how devastated she was when her uncle Ajuka gave her to the Red Dragon Emperor. Latia had cried endlessly, as displayed by her tear-stained cheeks. Sekiruuyetei was concerned for her friend as she approached her and asked in concern, "What happened?" Latia could only point to Athena, who was crying endlessly. Sekiruuyetei turned her attention to Athena and asked in worry. Lady Athena, what happened? Are you okay? Athena did not even look at her, she kept on crying due to what had happened a few days ago. Lady Athena, please tell us. Sekiruuyetei spoke with concern, to which Letitia responded to her friend's question. Do you think the factions even care for us? Letitia spoke with a devastated look. She was unable to handle that they just sold her to his issei. Just like that, there was no hesitation in Zeus's voice, and none of the other faction leaders, including Ajuka, tried to stop her or convince her otherwise out of fear. Who honestly don't know, I think they care for us, Sekiruuyetei tried to fake smile to convince Letitia. However, even she knew that it is not true since only her parents tried to contact, not even any of her fellow Satans even tried to contact her. As she then asked, did your parents or your uncle contact you? Letitia shook her head in response as she muttered, no. This was audible enough for Sekiruuyetei to hear. That is when she heard a voice that had a complete sadness. They both looked to see the goddess of wisdom speak her words. They won't. Zeus gave me to the Red Dragon Emperor without even thinking twice, and because of him, you girls are also doomed along with me. Athena spoke with tears falling from her eyes. She was devastated with what Zeus did to her. Among all the Greeks, Athena was the most loyal of them. She hated the fact that she was only meant as a bargaining chip just to make sure that her faction remained intact. Along with her being one of the few to suspect to say hi to, everything she did was for the benefit of Olympus, and he just abandoned her without hesitation. I am so sorry that you two had to be dragged with me because of my father. Athena spoke with complete devastation as she burst into crying. Zeus completely broke her. No, it's okay. You are not at fault. It was my uncle's idea to give us to him. Letitia spoke while rubbing the goddess's back. She was equally devastated as her uncle gave her to Issei without even consulting her. At first, she was angry that Issei asked for them, only viewing her for her body during the meeting, but when she asked him this question, he refused to take advantage of her. She was happy with this, which made her believe that he was only putting up the act of villain to harass the factions. But why? All her questions would be answered very soon. Sekiruuyetei clenched her fist in anger. She was not happy with what Ajuka and the other Satans did. She realized that she had to stick together. But even then, I can't blame Heidu. He did not ask for us in any way. Letitia spoke while trying to keep her calm. It was our uncle along with the rest of the faction leaders that offered us to him and didn't even try to stop him. Letitia spoke with sadness as tears fell from her eyes with Sekiruuyetei consoling her friend. Things have become bad for them, and at the very least, they know that Heidu will not try to do anything with them. There is only one thing we can do, Sekiruuyetei spoke in a serious tone. They knew that in their house, only they themselves could stand for each other and must stick together. What? Letitia asked in sadness, with Athena looking at her at the same time. We must stick together, we can only trust ourselves. Since we are in the same situation, we cannot trust anyone completely who is going to help us out of this situation, even Heidu. We are grateful for him to let us have our own rooms, but we know of his violent nature and aggressive attitude, so we need to be wary of him, and I presume he even hates us. Once we know who he is, then only we can trust completely. Sekiruuyetei spoke with a deep thought. Both Letitia and Athena looked at her and spoke. But Heidu won't take advantage of us. Are you sure we should be wary? Letitia asked, to which Athena responded in agreement to Sekiruuyetei. He won't, but Sekiruuyetei is right. He hates us, and we should be a little careful of him. Athena spoke seriously, to which Letitia nodded reluctantly. They feared that if they tried to attack or lash out at him, he may do something drastic. They could barely trust anyone except for the others that have been paired with his issei, just like them. He did not hesitate to deal with his father when he harassed Nyx, and who knows what will happen. Hyde who doesn't love or care for them, that is one thing for sure they are aware of. I think we should tell this to Mirana as well, she deserves to know. Athena spoke seriously, to which the girls nodded in agreement. They must stick together as things for them are looking pretty bad. However, unbeknownst to them, Nyx overheard the entire conversation before hiding herself as the girls headed to Mirana Shiratova's room. I see you girls are still weary. Nyx spoke with a worthful smile as she looked at the girls and responded, Soon you will realize that your engagement is a blessing, not a curse. Before changing into a proper smile as she disappeared into the darkness. Scene change, time skip. 3 days before the fight, hidden base, 9:30 a.m. Issei walked into the base where he was greeted by 2 battle droids, Supreme Leader. Both bowed in front of him as he looked at them and responded. Bring me Malak, Grievous and Kalani, this is important. The battle droids nodded, and moments later, they announced the 3 generals' arrival. So what is it you want us to do? Malak asked with interest. He was almost done with his speech. I hope we are invading another of the supernatural scum faction. I am going to enjoy their despair. Grievous spoke with an excited tone as he looked at his fellow generals who were all interested in it. I have something better for you guys. Once the fight with Dai is concluded, we will go after our next target faction, and that is the Yukai faction. Issei spoke seriously, but had a smile on his face. He is going to make Yusaku suffer for his treatment of him. So what is it, Issei? Kalani spoke in a cheerful tone. As Grievous was also happy with the news, Issei activated a purple mist and took them to his own personal dimension. The reason for this was because the weapon was too big for it to be fitted into the hidden base as they looked at 2 huge battleships. Are we going to pilot them? Grievous asked in surprise as Issei responded. Indeed, both you and Malak will, since you will be taking the fight to them. Say hello to the Malevolence and the Leviathan. Malevolence was a dark purple ship that measured 45 meters. It had a cannon at the left hilt of the ship that could fire an energy pulse meant to completely shut down magical barriers. It had several cannons and was inspired by the real-life Bismarck of the German army. It had 2 special compartments that looked as if it had chomped on someone with several processing units, which would be operational, with a yellow glow that indicated its presence. Leviathan, on the other hand, was almost 15 meters long. It had a ushered appearance with its color being silver in color. It had a similar health that airplanes have on their bodies. It also had several machine guns meant for wearing down several of the supernatural soldiers and is the most effective against the Asgardian forces. It was also capable of using ion cannons that could wipe out entire countries in one strike. Is this for us? Malak asked as Issei turned to his allies and gave a smile. Leviathan is for you, Malak, while the Malevolence is for Grievous, Kalani. You will get yours very soon. It was really hard designing these 2. Issei spoke with a tired sigh as Kalani shook his head and responded with Malak and Grievous waiting to try it, and were really happy about it. No. It's alright. Take your time, Issei. I shall await it. Kalani spoke with a cheerful tone as Issei looked at the designs. They were ready to be sent into the battle. They returned back to their dimension as Issei gave a side glare to Kalani and asked, Is everything ready for the big event? Issei asked, to which Kalani gave a nod as he spoke. The hidden speakers and television screens have been set up. It has been hidden across every single faction populace minus Grigori, given its status. Issei nods in response. And I have prepared a speech that is going to devastate the factions. Malak spoke with a grin as Issei smiles in response. He wanted to see the factions lose their morale after their fight. I am going to sit at the sidelines and enjoy the scene. Grievous spoke with a shrug. He was not the face of this unknown army, like Malak, nor was he super intelligent like Kalani was. He was more of a warrior meant to bring about destruction, an aggressor if one might consider him good. Everything is going as I have foreseen. Dies. Time as the faction hero will end in 3 days, and even if the leaders don't execute my sorry excuse of a brother, he will still be either imprisoned or humiliated by the rest of his life. Issei spoke seriously with a sinister grin. Malak and the 2 generals nod as they begin their plans of the big event that will change supernatural history forever. Scene change. Time skip, a few hours before the fight. Underworld. 9 a.m. Well, today is the day, Issei spoke with a massive grin. Everything was going as he had planned. He looked at the 3 girls that will be accompanying him. They were Charlotte, Nyx and Quinella. Nyx now wore a white top with a black jacket. She additionally wore jeans along with a belt and heels. Well, I am surprised that you didn't wear your godly killer virgin clothes. Issei spoke with a smile as Nyx shook her head and responded. Oh, you like it? Persephone took me shopping to buy these. Issei gave a nod as he spoke. Like, I love it, and have you grown a bit, because you seem a bit taller? Issei asked as Nyx nods and responds with a smile. It wouldn't be nice of me to remain short, especially now that we are in the modern day, so I grew a few meters in height. Nyx looked at Issei. She almost seemed 5 feet 6 inches, almost being shy of a single inch of Issei's own height. Her facial expressions seemed to be matured a bit. They both fell into their own trance. It was like their own world, as both Quenella and Charlotte seemed to be annoyed, as they exclaimed with slight jealousy in their voices, Lord Issei. We have to go. Quenella looked at Issei, causing them to snap out of their trance. Yeah. Are you two not going to go for the fight? Charlotte had the same attitude. As Issei sighed, he then activated his ring portal and entered into it. Nyx chuckled at Issei's attitude. As they entered, they saw the 2 guards at the entrance. No sooner than they recognized him, they immediately opened the doors. They sensed the 2 girls among them were to be Satan descendants, thanks to the aura they emanated. It seems like the 2 of you made quite the impression. Nyx spoke with a smirk, to which the 2 girls chuckled. Before they enter inside, Issei spoke quietly yet seriously. You 2 know how to act, right? Both Charlotte and Quenella nodded in response as they both head inside, with both of them not intending to disappoint their lord. Once they were inside, the mood of happiness changed into a mood of sourness and anger. The most of the devils recognized the 2 girls to be descendants of either Asmodeus or Beelzebub, as Zeus angrily demanded, What is this woman doing here? Zeus was ready to attack, with several others being ready for his say. Nyx had her darkness swirling in her hands, ready to take this god down if he tried to do anything with her love interest and her allies. Meanwhile, Seorg, Sigi and Riser all looked at the girls with hearts in their eyes. They were clearly charmed by the 2 girls, ignoring the scuffle that may break out between Nyx and Zeus, as they were all snapped out of their trances by their friends, or in the case of Di and Riser, their lovers and queen respectively. However, before the fight could escalate, Issei put his hand in front of Nyx as he spoke seriously and coldly. If I were you, Zeus, I would stand down. Issei's tone then changed into a mocking tone. Besides, do you wish to deal with me? Remember what happened last time, right? Issei's words made Zeus fear. As he remembered what he did, he gritted his teeth in rage for his humiliation and harassment. But he couldn't do anything, since Issei would kill him and dare the rest of the faction leaders to do something about it. That's what I thought, Issei scoffed as Sergiches then spoke seriously and coldly. I do. You know damn well that she is still a criminal, yet you allowed her to come to this fight. Issei shook his head, then responded in a mocking tone. Not my monkeys, not my circus. Issei ignored the glares everyone gave him as Sergiches and several of the other leaders clenched their fists in anger, as Issei spoke with a smile. And besides, Nyx is not the only star of this show. We'll meet the last 2 descendants of the Satans, Charlotte Beelzebub and Quenella Asmodeus, Issei declared, as many widened their eyes, except most of the devils. And yes, they are half-bloods, meaning 1 devil parent and 1 human parent. Issei revealed with a smile. It is nice to meet you. My name is Quenella Asmodeus. Quenella feigned arrogance as she looked at her fellow Satan, who nodded and spoke with an arrogant smile. My name is Charlotte Beelzebub. It is nice to meet you, lowly beings. Charlotte feigned arrogance, just like Quenella, who sighed in relief. Charlotte tried really hard to make an arrogant expression, as she was not the type to be arrogant. If anything, she was the opposite of that. She was kind and empathetic. And even Issei praised her due to her hard work. Many were taken aback at their attitude. As the devils sighed, this was nothing new for them, since many of the high-class devils were known to be like this. It seems like the act is working well, Nyx muttered as Issei gave a chuckle and nod. And before you ask, no, they are not part of the Devil Society and will not be part of it, no matter how much you convince them. Issei spoke with a mocking grin. As the devils clenched their fists in anger and fury, Issei enjoyed seeing their despair-filled expressions. How can you? They are important to the Devil Society because Seraphos spoke angrily as Issei interrupted and responded, breeding stocks. Isn't that why most of the devil women are important, so that they can be used as rabbits meant to repopulate your race? Right, Issei mocked Seraphos. As she clenched her fist in anger, Issei dashed in front of her at speeds that made it seem that he teleported in lightning speeds. I can sense your anger. Issei had the true long eye-ness aimed at her head, causing her to shiver in fear. Attack me at your own peril, cause it will only take me a minute to erase you, Saracen, Issei spoke coldly. Seraphol fell to her knees with an angry expression as tears fell down from her eyes. Most of the devils were furious at what Issei did as he walked away to his group. So when is the match? Issei asked. Brother, are you that energetic to lose? Dai spoke in a mocking tone, but in reality, he wanted to postpone his demise as far as possible. He really feared what would happen. Indeed, he is my love. He will lose big time, and then he will be one of our slaves along with those two girls who would be your lovers. Ria spoke with a mocking tone as she gave a kiss to her lover, Issei, then turned his attention to her and grabbed her throat as this forces her to be split from Dai. Issei, hi, do let her go, Sergius shouted. However, Issei was not in a mood. He grabbed Ria's, and before anyone could react, he grabbed the Satan Lucifer by his throat. Issei had two lightning slayer gloves in his hands. They were terrified of what Issei would do. Both of them were struggling from Issei's grip. They tried to use their power of destruction only to see that lightning was being generated from the gloves, implying that Issei would kill them in an instant. He was releasing his aura, which made many terrified of him. Nyx counteracted this by using her own aura to protect Charlotte and Quinella. But even she was worried. He was not going to tolerate any insults from. Keep in mind, you may be a super devil, Serzex, Lucifer, you may be strong. But if you are not on guard, then a well and very strong enough holy spell will be enough to critically wound if not kill them. And this is for you, Sergius. Just imagine what would happen to Rias. Issei spoke with a sinister grin. They too were fearful, with many of the guests being terrified of what might happen, as Issei shouted. Ajuka, Shiva and several others noted that his aura was on the level of a heavenly dragon, and that was without his gear. They couldn't imagine how strong he was with his gear. The others couldn't process what was going on. All they knew was that his aura was draconic, and it was stronger than most of them, and like Ajuka and Shiva, were terrified of the prospect of if he had used his sacred gear. Bitch, I dare you to save this weakling brother of yours, who is struggling for his own life in my grip. Issei looks around to see if there are any volunteers, only to see everyone shivering with fear. Is there someone who will dare to save this bitch? Now listen and listen very well. If someone in this entire room insulted me and my girls or even dared to eye them or mock me in any way possible, I swear you, Sergix Grimmery, I will start with your wife and son, but by the time I am done, the word devil will be just history, nothing but history. And if anyone dares to address me any other way, except for Lord Issei, they can say their goodbye to their lives, especially for you, so-called gods from today, it's Lord Issei. Got it, especially you, Mr. Cheating God, Issei screamed while lying Odin and everyone else, making everyone even more terrified of him. His aura increased even more due to his wrath. They wanted Dai to stop Issei, only to see him covering in fear. As they realized something horrible was going to happen in the match, he turned his attention to his guests as he demanded, "Is that clear?" Issei shouted, as they all were too frozen in fear to do anything due to the outburst. Even the Hindu gods were nervous about what Issei would do to them. "As that clear?" Issei screamed, as many minus Nyx, Charlotte and Quinella nodded their heads rapidly in fear. Issei then dropped the terrified Sergius and Rias, with the latter passing out due to her fear. Her friends and loved ones desperately tried to wake her up, with Sergius being helped by his queen Graphia. They did not even hesitate to stop him, as Issei commanded, "When is the match? I demand to know now." Issei commanded, as Graphia spoke with a gulp, fear laced in her voice. "Lord Issei, it is Einenhauer. This was meant to prepare yourself for the fight." Issei nods. As he walks towards his girls, he stops releasing his aura as he spoke with a sad tone. "I am sorry for scaring you three," to which Nyx nodded in response and gave a loving smile. "It just shows how much you care for us." Nyx spoke with a smile, to which Quinella and Charlotte nodded. They both had a blush on their faces. Issei turned to the devils and declared, "Keep in mind, the girls are not breeding tools. If you disagree, you know what will happen, right?" The girls agreed to this as Issei and the girls walked away. They all just watched Issei and the girls walk away, the smart ones made a mental note to not mess with Issei or his girls. Seorg and Riser mentally thanked their friend's queen for stopping him from making a mistake, while Segi and Dai were horrified as fear consumed their bodies completely. This was true for Dai, as he knew that his brother was miles, if not further ahead of him. He brought his future brother-in-law, Sursages, at his mercy. Everyone was terrified of him. His aura matched Crom in his opinion. No. It might even be stronger than him, and that was with his boosted gear. Graphia prepared the match. Graphia looked at Sursages, who managed to catch his breath. He was furious at how his say humiliated him. Graphia nodded, as Dee feared when he saw Graphia prepare the dimension. He knew that his brother would show him no mercy. If Sursages was brought to this condition, then he wondered what his say would do to him. Gulping, he headed to the changing room with Crom wanting to mock him. But he had a better idea. He wanted to be released. He proposed to strike a deal with his say. He would do anything to get rid of this idiot. Back at the podium, Sursages, while angry, was also terrified. He gritted his teeth in fury. Issei dared to humiliate him and threaten his wife and son along with the rest of the devil faction, while he was helplessly under his control. He even dared the gods to stop him, and not even Shiva or I could do nothing but watch. This was the first time he felt fear, so much so, he wanted to escape along with his loved ones against the monster in front of him. He had never experienced this, not in his career as a Satan, or not during his time as the heir of the Gremry clan. He can destroy the devil race right in front of his eyes, make him watch and dare him to do something about it. There was nothing he could do, never he has used his boosted gear against the Satans, and if he does, well, let's just say devils will be nothing but a history. Chapter 11, War Against the False Hero. Arena, Underworld, 12 p.m. The leaders had all gathered in the watching booth. As they took their seats, they all took a seat and watched the fight. They couldn't see Issei and Dai, which meant that he was in the changing rooms. As they came to sit, they saw 3 additional spectators. This was revealed to be Nyx, Charlotte, and Quinella. This did not sit well with the leaders, who were not a big fan of the girls being in the same location as them, but feared that if they said a word, they would do something that would anger Issei, and angering him is something they did not want to do. They sat a few seats away from the leaders. Humph! Nyx scoffed, something that was audible by the leaders near her, for instance, Zeus, who clenched his fist in anger, but he was unable to do anything. Hey Nyx, how long will this fight last? Charlotte muttered to Nyx, who smiled at her fellow ally. If or take, I'd say, a few minutes at most, but that mostly depends on his say. Nyx responded silently, to which Charlotte was confused as she asked, I don't understand. Quinella responded to her friend as she explained to her with a smile, albeit silently, so that the leaders don't hear her. It means it depends on whether Issei wants to torture him, or he wants to make it quicker. The more he wants to torture, the more time he will take when he wants to make him suffer. Charlotte nodded. She was happy and excited to see the fight happen. Either way, the real show will begin after the fight, right girls? Nyx muttered in a sing-along tone as the girls nodded. That was the part they were excited for the most. Meanwhile, as this was going on, Issei and Drake were preparing for their fight. Drake was excited to see the plan Issei had for him. So partner, which sacred gears we are going to use? Drake asked in an excited tone as Issei rubbed his chin. Well, for starters, we are going for the good all-boosted gear, then we will go for the true long Enus and incinerate anthem, to name a few. I mean, Dai is so weak that any of our long Enus will deal a good amount of damage, even kill him. Issei spoke with a smile. There are a good amount of sacred gears he can use to take him down. The options are wide. He wanted to make this as painful and beautiful as possible. That is when all of a sudden, the changing room changed immediately, and they both were caught off guard. Issei could release himself from this trap, but he was curious about who wanted him there. The two looked to see, and Dreg was surprised. It was a dragon, but a majestic jet-black dragon with a black and golden aura surrounding him. Since he has black wings, the dragon was a Western dragon. I never thought you would be seeing us here, Crom Crutch. Dreg spoke with surprise as Crom bowed in front of Issei. I beg you, please remove me from Dai. This surprised the two. Dreg had once told him that a dragon would never give up his pride, no matter what happens, as Issei and Drake had to hear what the crumb had to speak. Why should we? What does it have in us? Issei asked. Drake also did not trust Crom. He was an evil dragon, and unlike regular dragons, they are rarely to be trusted. But at the same time, he would never come to him, not when he was willing to give up his pride. I would never bother you, and if I tell my future host that to never mess with you or Drake ever again, Crom begged to say, he was willing to do anything to let himself be freed from Dai. I never cared for Crom, Issei, or anyone. Perhaps he did love his parents, but even that is uncertain. He cursed himself for ever getting into the situation. He is not to be blamed for Dai since, if anything, he couldn't control his host even if he wanted to, else he would do that a long time ago. Additionally, Crom envied Drag not because of him being a heavenly dragon, given that his strength was on par with his, but it was because of having a good friend like Issei as his host, not to mention, Drag highly trusted him like his very own. So tell me, Crom, how did you get into this situation? Issei asked, to which Crom responded, you see, when I had heard that Drag and Albion were fighting, I also decided to join as well. Needless to say, the biblical god was not happy, since dealing with 3 heavenly class dragons could wipe him and his faction out. However, I refused to back down. I took down any archangel that was in my way and nearly killed Gabriel. That was when God snapped. He viewed Gabriel as his daughter, and in his rage, he cut me into millions of pieces and sealed me in this gear, and well, I guess the rest is history. Crom explained as Issei and Drake nodded. That would explain why Gabriel was weary of Dai. Issei spoke with thought as he remembered that Gabriel was fearful of Dai. To the point that angels did not come near him, he gritted his teeth remembering more of his past. It was when RageRevan attacked heaven and managed to take fruit of life and fruit of wisdom. Gabriel had nearly died, however, Issei managed to save her, but even when she fell for Dai's lies, which was this time supported by Irina Shudu, as the girls presumed them to be truths, she pretended to care for Issei, as she then talked behind his back about him being a pervert. He was surprised that she did not fall, but then again, the devil was once an angel. Issei sighed. He was not gonna lie, seeing her in despair, and a broken state, made him happy. Well, either way, it was to decide whether he should help Crom or not. I will think about it. Crom nodded, saddened by the outcome as dimensions returned to normal. Dreg wasn't surprised. He felt like his partner had a plan as he knew that Crom would not be staying with Dee for much longer. Well, Dreg, let's get ready. Dreg nodded with him returning to his excited state. It's showtime, Issei exclaimed as Dreg responded. Indeed, it is a partner. Both head outside, and he noticed a man then announces, he remembers him to be Nod Gamagen. He had black hair with a tuft of purple hair and wore formal clothes, befitting of a devil. Welcome everyone to the fight of the century. On one corner, we have Dai Hyadu, the bearer of the crescent circle dragon Crom Cruich, and the pillar of factions as well as the savior of the world. Nod announced in an excited tone. Many cheer for him as many exclaim in happiness and cheerfulness. O Dai! Each year, fool of a brother, some manners, show him his place, Dai. We love you. Dai. The spotlight changed to Dai, who enjoyed all the glory, or that's what it seemed. Internally he was afraid of what will happen. Since he saw his brother with his eyes closed, he was waiting for when the match would begin. And on the other end, we have the Red Dragon Emperor, Issei Hyadu, the one who brought terror in the eyes of many. Please welcome the competitors with a round of applause. The spotlight changed to Issei Hyadu with many of the civilians booing and jeering for Issei. He was getting annoyed by this as he shouted. Shut up! Issei raised his aura, silencing everyone. They were forced to be quiet due to fear of provoking him. Nyx, Charlotte, and Quinella sighing in disappointment. The leaders were worried that Issei, due to his anger, might go after innocent civilians. However, Issei looked at Nod and nodded. He understood that the match must begin. Right. The match between Issei Hyadu and Dai Hyadu will commence. Fighters, take your position. Issei activates his boosted gear and true long hyenas at the same time. This makes the devils and Indra worried about what he will do next. I removed his crescent circle gauntlets as he had gotten into position. He also removed Ascalon to face off against his brother. And begin. Nod announced as both brothers dashed in front of each other, ready to end this clash once and for all. He's changed the songs since he wanted to put on a show, and he knew the perfect song to do so. He secretly removed his unknown dictator and hacked into the song's systems and played the song. The announcer was shocked by this. He tried changing the song but failed to do anything. He could only watch as the song was being played at full volume. Either way, he couldn't deny that the song was catchy. Issei kept the long Enos active and kept it in his pocket dimension as Issei and Dai were clashing with each other with their melee weapon skills being on par with each other, as he was surprised that Dai was able to keep up with him even though he was not trying. I guess as a fraud, you managed to pick up some skills, yet they are disappointing, Issei spoke, feigning sadness. Dai gritted his teeth in fury as he pushed Issei away. Managing to recover his balance, Issei unleashed a holy beam at his brother who was barely able to dodge it. This was due to his true long Enus. He decided to use his balance breaker for later since he, like Cao Cao, was able to master Pyrenaic Rutten. Many were surprised by the weapon skills Issei possessed. As Dai charged at Issei with Ascalon in his hands, he was ready to strike him down. As he blocked with his spear, he kept slashing while Issei was blocking them with each strike. Both charged towards each other as Dai punched with force enough to even shatter the ground. Issei blocked the punch with ease as he shook his head in disappointment. "You disappoint me," Issei spoke in a cold tone as he slashed Dai's chest, making him shout in pain. This was due to true long Inus being a holy relic as a burning pain increases in his body. Issei twirls his spear and rests the blade on his shoulder. "You know, there are a number of creative ways I could end this match, you know?" Issei spoke with a sinister grin as Dai widened his eyes in shock as Issei exclaimed, "Balance breaker. Welsh dragon balance breaker. Balance breaker, Polar Knight Chakravartin." Issei activated both of his balance breaker modes along with 7 orbs coming from behind him. They all had the same appearance, making each one harder to identify as Dai had no choice but to activate his balance breaker. "Balance breaker," Grom reluctantly announced. "First moon balance breaker. Well, would you look at that? A copy of the boosted gear." Issei spoke with a mocking tone as Dai gritted his teeth and shouted, "Copy? I will show you a copy." Dai charged at Issei, as his older brother fired a dark shot at Issei, with Issei using one of his orbs while speaking. "Manratna." The cursed shot was redirected at him, making him grit his teeth in pain. "You know, this wouldn't have been a problem if you actually fought Cao Cao, or even watched the fight." Instead of hugging all the credit, Issei spoke with a mocking tone. "I managed to recover," and he dashed in front of him, intending to stab the dragon with Ascalon, only for Issei to use his second orb, and that was Karatana. The Karatana Issei managed to use the second orb to shatter Ascalon upon contact. Dai was shocked as his only weapon was destroyed. He was defenseless, and that made him afraid, as Issei spoke with a mocking tone. "Defenseless? I was expecting you to at least take on the entire list of orbs. It seems like you are weaker than I thought," Issei spoke with a mocking tone. "I felt fear. He was defenseless without his blade." However, it was too late to back down now. He could only watch as Issei readied his third orb, a few retina. Scene change. I do residence 2 p.m. Most of the audience was surprised to see this. Even the ones that knew of Issei's abilities knew that he was holding back. Now they are starting to suspect him on whether his abilities are false or not. The girls that were betrothed to Issei stayed back because they did not want to go to the underworld. He broke Ascalon with just one of his orbs. Cyceria spoke with surprise as she continued, "How is this possible? Each of the true Longinus's orbs created from Polar Knight Chakravartin has a unique trait. If I remember correctly, the first one redirects attacks, and the second one can break any weapon," Latia explained to her friends, as Athena continued her explanation. "But that's not all." Everyone looked at the goddess who explained, "The third one can allow teleporting, the fourth one seals the ability of women for a short time, the fifth can lift any objects, and the sixth can create armies similar to Gremry Knight's balance breaker, and the last can unleash a blast strong enough to even take out an ultimate class being." Many except Latia were surprised by this. Even Artemis and Elizabeth were not surprised due to them knowing Issei's abilities firsthand. So how long do you think this battle will last? Artemis looked at her younger sister, who responded, If anything, I don't think Lord Issei is even using his full power. Athena spoke with deep thought, not realizing that she called Issei her lord. Something that Artemis sensed. It seems like you are waking up, Sister Artemis thought in happiness. She was happy that her sister was realizing the error of his ways. The others minus Elizabeth were confused as to why Athena called to say her lord. Well, either way, let's watch this match. I believe that it would conclude sooner than we anticipate. Athena spoke with deep thought. As many were surprised by the goddess's words, they wondered what Issei has up his sleeve. Scene change. Watching booth, Underworld Arena, Underworld, 2 p.m. The leaders were in complete denial about what was going on as Michael spoke with shock and fear. Ascalon was destroyed. Ajuka shook his head and responded, It shouldn't be surprising. You should have known that each of the true Longinus orbs is capable of doing that. Zeus gritted his teeth in anger. What more powers does this brat have hiding in him? Zeus watched as Issei bombarded Dai with several huge rocks, making the pillar of the faction struggle in complete shock. Isaka and Seraphiel were not happy seeing their love being beaten to this state. They wanted to intervene, but couldn't. Primarily, one was that to say, will not hesitate to kill them in the most brutal manner possible. And two, this was an official match. And I don't even think that is his strongest form. Shiva spoke with deep thought, with many being surprised. The fear among most of the faction leaders rose up again. Rhea shivered in fear on hearing this. She remembered how he had nearly killed her a while back. She had woken up a few minutes before the match had begun and was terrified of the monstrous Sei was. Not even her older brother could stop him. She looked at her bishop, Asia, who was equally scared of him. Valerie and Ingvild kept quiet. However, unlike the leaders in his harem, they had no sympathy for this liar, as they knew that Issei was much more powerful. Valerie shivered, remembering how she was made to deal with the holy flame versions of Grendel and Layden during his fight with him. Paniko, Kuroka, Lefay and Irina were terrified of him to the point that they knew that messing with him is a death sentence. They knew that he was not the weak and glory-hugging brother they knew him to be. But he was much more sinister and scary. He could kill them and not even feel empathy for any of them. Irina gulped, remembering what she had spoken to him during their visit to heaven, and only prayed that she would be spared from the Red Dragon's wrath. The same could be said for Zenobia, Rosways, and Ravel. They all were frozen in fear when he had nearly killed their master, or Philippuebla Devil in Ravel's case, and even Surzex couldn't stop him. He was a monster to them in every shape and form, as he knew that he would kill them without hesitation, and nobody would even stop him due to how powerful he is. The Citri peerage was nervous, especially Jinchiro. If word got out that he had helped Dai in his rumors across his school, then he would lose everything. However, there was one thing that made him relieved, was that he could still be spared due to his lack of influence in Dai's actions, since he could lie that he was doing this only because Dai asked him to do. In other words, he would put Dai under the bus while making sure his skin gets saved. The Baal and Phoenix peerages belonging to Ser Gunriser were nervous. They were happy that they were not on the receiving end of Issei's anger, as they did not know his full strength. Meanwhile, Issei pelted a huge boulder at Dai, which dealt significant damage to Dai. His armor was starting to shatter. As Sarathna, Issei used one of the orbs on himself and teleported right behind Dai. Before Dai could notice, Issei punched him hard on his face that broke his helmet, revealing his face. Dai tried to respond with a dark shot, but Issei teleported to a different location. Two blasters emerged from the back of Issei's armors, and before Dai could react, Issei fired a combined blast from his blasters as he spoke, Paraniac Retina. The combined blast of the two Longinus was enough to make Dai scream in pain. Dai screamed as his armor completely withered away. However, Issei's intention was not to kill him, not yet. He wanted him alive, since killing him would be mercy. But he had another idea. Smirking internally, he knew what he needed to do. Dai was completely in his human form with no armor, nothing. He was helpless. The factions and most of the spectators couldn't believe what they were seeing. Dai was completely at the mercy of his brother. They knew that Issei hated Dai, and they feared what Dai would do to him. He then asked Drake to send a message. "Hey Drake, can you do me a favor?" Issei mentally spoke to Drake, and he responded. What happened now? Drake spoke, clearly annoyed by the fact that Issei was ruining his fun. Just send a message to Crom. His release is confirmed. Tell him to meet me later, that is if he can. Drake nodded in response as he did what his say asked him to do. Well, Dai, let's end this, shall we? Dai then spoke with fear. No, please, can we just talk about this? Dai begged his brother for mercy. Many were surprised to see Dai act like this. Those that knew Dai assumed that he would come up with a way to turn the situation around. Issei was chuckling seeing this. Many feared what would happen next. Oh, little brother, you made my life as miserable as possible. You think that I am going to show you mercy when I didn't show any of the other faction leaders mercy? What makes you think I will show you mercy? Issei smiled evilly as he kept his true spear in as a rock came on his hand. Say hello to Rock of Jerusalem. Another of my long-eyedness, Issei spoke with a mocking tone as what seemed to be a hardened sponge came from his hand. Rock of Jerusalem was another of the holy relics. This time it was a holy sponge that was meant to feed Jesus during his crucifixion. Scene change. Watching booth, Underworld Arena, Underworld, 3:30 p.m. Michael and Gabriel were shocked to see another of the holy relics, let alone as a long-eyedness, in Issei's hands. That meant there needs to be others that can do the same. If Issei was able to recreate them, that meant there would be other relics of Christ that might have turned into the long-eyedness. No way, Michael spoke in disbelief as Yusaka looked at him and asked, Is it really what Issei means? A long-eyed. Michael gave a nod. Many were shocked and fearful of what Issei will do as he was strong enough to bring Dai to his knees. This fear was present in all the girls that dialogued as they were worried about what Issei would do. Even the faction leaders were fearful of what Issei is going to do next. Michael and Gabriel needed to locate the others, believing that they must have become Longinus. This is where the fun begins, Nyx muttered with a smile as she turned to the two girls and gave the signal. Both girls nodded in agreement as they left the room, leaving Nyx in the same location due to the fear of what was going to happen. They saw as Issei started to begin his plan. Scene change. Arena, Underworld, 3:45 p.m. Issei's body radiated with holy aura as he then exclaimed, Balance breaker, gates of Babylon. The rock started to glow with a radiant golden light as several portals of golden color started to appear behind Issei. Before anyone could react, several holy spears appeared from those portals as Issei directed them towards Dai. The spears dashed in front of him, and he screamed in pain due to the holy energy coursing through his body. Many closed their eyes in fear. Several were crying due to what was happening to their hero. The girls that loved Dai were crying their eyes out while the leaders helplessly watched this happening. Issei then brought out chains enchanted with holy magic as they all had hooks. He inserted these hooks onto each of Dai Hada's limbs, and he pulled his younger brother in an upright manner as he muttered, Drake, release every last one of my memory to the public. Drake grinned in response as he spoke. As you wish, partner. All of Issei Hayata's memories were for the world to present as many were horrified by what they saw. Every battle, everything that D had told the factions he had done was in reality done by him. Many were in shock and disbelief at what Issei had shown. Issei was the true hero of the factions, not Dai. There were still some angry protests despite the truth. Issei knew that many were so entangled in the lives of an impostor that it was impossible for them to see the truth. However, someone else decided to join in, and this was the evil dragon, Crom, who decided to support Issei in that matter. Every memory you see is true. My host, Dai Heidu, is nothing but a liar and deceiver. He betrayed all of you, took all the achievements of Issei Heidu. He only cared for the girls for their bodies. This is especially true for Ria's Gremory, Akino Himejima, Yusaka, and finally Engvold Leviathan. Prom declared, shattering many of the hearts of those girls. They were devastated when they heard of this, minus Engvold, who already knew of this. The leaders were horrified, but there was still some skepticism about the supernatural. But he did everything just to spite his brother. If it wasn't for Hyde, Issei, his life would have never been this great. Every single achievement was to his name. But he did not stop there. He only did this for fame, glory, and women. Allow me to now show you his memories. Crom declared angrily as Dai begged. No, please, Crom angrily retorted, shut up. Words cannot describe how much I hate you, Dai Heidu. Issei, once you remove me, Promise me to make sure to kill this pathetic whelp or at least torture him. I would love to watch that. But that Crom decided to show all of his memories to everyone in his world, making everyone horrified by what kind of a man, no monster this D. Haidu was. Many looked at D in disgust as a line reverberated across the Colosseum. This is something you will never enjoy. I looked down, in tears. His life was as good as gone. Many of the people booted him, and the kids destroyed the épée dragon figurines that Dai was a part of. He cried seeing this. Moments passed, and he snapped as eventually he shouted in a crazy tone. This is all your fault. Why didn't you die? Dai screamed to his brother, you should have been gone, else I would have all these women in my life. But no, you always want to take something I want. That alone sealed the final nail in the coffin. Everyone had lost any respect for the pillar of the factions, and their expression changed into disgust. Scene change. Watching booth, Underworld Arena. Underworld, 5 p.m. No way. Osaka spoke in disbelief as she realized that her lover was just like most men, only interested in her for her body. She was horrified that she treated the one that saved her like absolute garbage. Kunu was crying her heart out as she realized her future father was like the scum of the earth. Both mother and daughter held each other crying their hearts out. Serafo was also heartbroken. He, like several others, only viewed her for her body. She also saw that he was annoyed by her childlike attitude. The leaders were shocked and horrified by this. The worst affected was Sergitius. As he viewed him as a little brother, he gritted his teeth as a singular tear fell from his eye. Shemhizar was happy that Azazel was not here, else he would have been devastated by what occurred here. However, he was worried that in the hospital things would get worse. Many were furious, and this was true for Zeus, Shiva, Indra, Vishnu, Brahma and Adan, but were more angry at themselves for believing his lies. The girls that loved Dai, that being Ria's Grimry's peerage, were shocked and horrified. Ria's was shocked as tears fell from her eyes. She couldn't believe that Issei once loved her, and she made his life a living nightmare. Asia fell unconscious when she realized everything was true. Aquino only nodded. Due to what happened, she had lost any and all color from her eyes, and she barely had no emotion. Kaneko and Kuroka could only hug each other for comfort due to how devastating things had become. She now hated D. Denovia hated herself as a tear fell from her eyes. Like the others, she was misled by Irina and Riaz, believing that it was true. Speaking of Irina, the girl was devastated as her wings became black with guilt. This horrified Michael as he shouted, Irina! Michael rushed to his ace. She saw her crying her heart out. She lost the only one that cared or loved her for who she is. Michael brought her close to her, and as she cried into him, he was worried that Gabriel might suffer this fate. Gabriel, herself, was barely controlling it. Her wings were constantly on the edge of falling. She tried her best to stop the guilt from affecting her wings too much. So Ona Citri and her peerage were horrified, with the Citri girl crying due to the immense betrayal, with Saji fearing what might happen due to D being exposed. Haida Issei might go after him next. The other girls were devastated. Reveled Phoenix was crying due to what she saw. She couldn't believe that the man she loved was the scum of the earth. Riser and Ruel hugged their sister as they glared at I with hate. Envold, Leviathan and Valerie Lucifer weren't that affected. They already had their experience, and now the factions are in a downward spiral. They could only hope for a better future. You see it now, Nick spoke with anger in her voice. This is the face of the hero you put on a pedestal, a pathetic disgrace of a human being. I hope you are proud of yourselves. Because of what you did, you lost a gem of a human being, Nick shouted as she turned their attention to Valerie and Ingvild. And don't you two think of having any forgiveness? You might have known of Issei's past earlier, but he will never forget what you did to him, especially you, Ingvild. Nick shouted as the two girls looked down in shame. And why didn't you tell us any of this? Sergitius asked with slight anger, as Ingvild exclaimed, it was because you would never believe the two of us. The lies of D. Haidu have wrapped you around to such an extent that no matter what we do, you would never believe us. Riaz then shouted as tears fell from her eyes. We would have believed you. And Riaz was interrupted by Valerie shouting, don't kid yourself, Gremry. I am not going to completely blame you like you would in a situation like this. But even I know what you said was utter bullshit. You would have admonished and looked down upon her just like you did to the say hi to. Valerie shouted as a tear fell from her eye. I fell for yours and his lies, which you believed without thinking twice. And you have the audacity to say this, that you would have believed Dingveld. Shame on you, Rias Gremry. Shame on you. Valerie shouted as Rias was taken aback. She fell to her knees crying. No word of Valerie was a lie. Sergitius was also silent, like Valerie, even though he believed Rias and I. He was ashamed of himself. I hate myself for listening to you, Rias. Had I never listened, I would be with the one that truly loved me. Now just shut up, for everyone's sake. Ingvild shouted as Valerie agreed to Ingvild's words. They looked at Dee's pitiful condition, wondering what his say would do. She hardly had any empathy for him. Scene change. Arena, Underworld, 5:30 p.m. So brother, how does it feel to have your life ruined? Issei spoke with a sinister smile as he looked at his furious brother, gritting his teeth in fury, as he glared at his older brother with hate. Issei looked around. The boos and jeers that were directed at him earlier were now directed at Dai, as he thought. We are not even close to done yet. Issei waited for the signal. Until then, he spared time. He knew what he had to do. It was time to keep his promise. Issei remembered the ritual of sacred gear removal, as he remembered the ritual that Rainer performed in Asia, almost 2 years back. He did not see much, but he remembered that the target must be imprisoned and chained. But upon gaining the book, he gained knowledge of how to remove them properly. Issei muttered, "It's time this time." A book came in front of them, which many recognized to be the Book of Conceptual Records. The book started to glow a yellow light. As it then matched the wavelength of Dee's aura, Dee screamed in pain. As his soul was being ripped out, many were horrified. Like Shima's eye recognized it to be the sacred gear extraction method. Eventually, 2 gauntlets came out. It was the crescent circle gauntlets. Thank you, Issei. Hi, dude. I remain in eternal gratitude for what you did for me. Crom exclaimed in happiness, as Issei now wielded the 2 gauntlets. Dai weakly spoke. Did that back? It's my power, Issei chuckled darkly as he responded. Nope, now it's mine. Well, time to finish you anyway. Issei started to pull the chains that were attached. He remembered a medieval punishment as the pull started to increase. The arms and legs were ripped off and Dai screamed in pain. He was now a limbless torso. He then died due to the sacred gear removal as he then died due to blood loss. As many were looking away or puking from the brutality of his death, the children were made to look away, which was especially true for Kunu, who was still horrified by what she saw. Yasaka pulled her away to prevent her from being further traumatized. Well, what a brutality. The winner of this match's nod was suddenly silenced as Issei got the news of Charlotte and Quinella speaking telepathically. Everything is done, Lord Issei, you can tell Malik now. Issei grinned as he gave the order to Malik. Malik, you are good to go. Malik nodded in response. The screen suddenly changed to Malik, who showed up. Issei feigned fury as he growled. You have some nerve to interrupt my fun, Malik. Malik only snickered in response as he spoke. Don't worry, and besides, a commendable show you put on there. Issei gave a dark glare or pretended to give a dark glare as he spoke. Their army is of no match to me, Malik. It will only take me a snap of a finger to wipe you all out. Malik feigned fear but had respect for Issei, which was not a lie. The faction leaders were surprised by this as they were shocked that Malik himself was afraid of Issei. Malik spoke with a tone slightly hinting of fear. Oh, don't worry, I have no quarrel with you, Red Dragon Emperor. My target is only the factions. Malik declared, making the factions terrified of the monster in front of him. But either way, you can't deny the injustices that they did to you. I mean, you completely refused to help them. Issei gritted his teeth, feigning anger once again. He was right, but internally he was grinning in happiness. Here we have the false hero of the factions, who has done nothing but steal your achievements, your glory, your life, so that he could live on his own accord. While you rot in the background, this is your hero, factions, the ones chosen by your leaders. How pathetic. Malik shouted. Issei and Nyx had to applaud his acting skills. The people were terrified of what was happening. The leaders feared what Malik was doing. He was trying to turn the populace against them as they watched panic and chaos ensuing. They tried to contact the room where Nod was, but they didn't receive anything. They feared that they must have hijacked the communications. That I should have expected this. Wiping the supernatural factions would be a service. If anything, I couldn't be disappointed that these are the ones that are leading us. Believing a false hero while humiliating and admonishing the real one, making the false hero stand on a pedestal, and the true hero in his shadow. But it does not stop there, oh no. The screen suddenly changes to the meeting that was held in secret. The Hindu gods looked at the screen in horror as they were not there for the meeting. They only heard of it as they remembered Issei's deal of fighting Dai. As they know everyone saw the meeting, the other leaders feared what would happen. The meeting revealed that the faction leaders would even give off girls just to make sure hideously helped them. I pity Miss Athena and Miss Artemis for having a sorry excuse for a leader and father like Zeus. He willingly gave his own daughter off just to sell his own skin, which is really disgusting. I always knew from stories you weren't the best god, but this just shows how much you have fallen. And why did you do it? Because of fear, or because of your loss of pride? Either way, you really are a pathetic disgrace. Malak mocked the Greek god of thunder, who gritted his teeth in fury. That bastard, Zeus thought angrily, as Shiva, Indra, Vishnu and Brahma glared at Zeus. I am not even done yet. The girls that I say hi to you loved were easily swayed by lies courtesy of D. But even then, it was Rias Gremery and Sona Citri who managed to spread these lies, believing it to be true. Fools of a sister have even foolish older siblings that happen to be siskins, and you know this results in nepotism. And nepotism always results in disaster. Balak declared, as the people looked at Riaz and Sona, who fear what was going on. Either way, it's disappointing to see you fools like this. But that isn't going to stop us from attacking you and wiping you out. We won't tell you, when we attack, it may take a day, may take a week, or even a month, but we will attack you. Malak chuckled darkly as the people started panicking and running around. After all, the anticipation of the threat is sometimes worse than the threat itself. Goodbye, foolish factions. But that Malak ended the speech. Issei mentally smirked happy with Malak's speech as he saw chaos all over the arena. People that looked down upon him, people that hated him were all suffering. He then revived Dai using the Holy Grail as he was surprised by this. Where? Dai spoke with surprise as Issei bounded him by the chains, making him scream again. Issei waited for the girls to come. He promised them that they would get a front row experience and Dai's torture. He was going to die. The number of years he made Issei's life a living hell. Moments later, the girls teleport next to Issei, with a microphone so that everyone could hear them. Nyx was watching at the booth with her smirk, while Envold and Valerie were silent, wondering what would happen next. Hello everyone. My name is Quinella Asmodeus, and this is my friend Charlotte Beelzebub. This is a message we would like to give everyone, both having satisfying smirks. The people stopped for a moment as Quinella spoke seriously. Now let me make this clear, once and for all, either me nor my friend will be used for breeding tools, so don't ever come to us with the intentions of that. Quinella continued in a mocking tone, and as for the girls of Dee's harem, Quinella spoke with a glare aimed at Riaz Gremery and her peerage primarily. If you so as little think of approaching Issei thinking that he will forget everything and make amends, then you are wrong. You lost your chance when you chose Dee over someone that would have loved you more than anyone else. And I don't care how guilty you feel about it, you admonished and humiliated him, broke him, and even went so far as to attack him. Some of you even spread rumors about him. Shame on all of you, Quinella declared with fury in her voice, reducing the Gremery peerage and some others to tears. But you don't have to worry about his future, because we are with him. We are grateful that you never came into his life. He doesn't want false people like you to love him. I mean, how stupid can you be to not check on the rumors and words someone says? I am pretty sure you even believe this man because he has a good face. We have first-hand experience on how looks can be deceiving, but no. You didn't even do a background check? You did everything Dee did, even worse. You are all pathetic. Charlotte was the one to speak. She was equally angry, as Quinella spoke in disgust. And then you asked him for his help. No, you force him to have you help you guys. Quinella glared at Valerie, who looked away. Why should he help you? Why should he care for any of you? If I was him, I would have left far away never to be seen again, leaving you guys to your fates. And then you have the guts to give some of your ladies to get him on your side and even go as far as to threaten him. Why the hell should he help your sorry asses? Cornelia shouted as the faction leaders looked away in guilt, except for a few who were angry that a half-breed like her is talking back to them. Oh, and if you are watching this, Azazel, the fact that you are the most eager to get Azazel, despite the fact that you did the same treatment to Azazel, you are beyond pathetic. Do you expect him to actually save you? You are a hypocrite, Azazel. You fell due to your perversions, yet even when false rumors spread of him, you criticize and admonish him. Tell me, how many have your faction murdered for recognition? Some even went so far as to toy with them and kill them for their enjoyment. I am glad that your faction is on a steady decline. If Ersay wouldn't have saved us from your fallen, then we would have been dead by now. You and Shemizai both have zero control over what your subordinates do. Case in point, Raynor, a fallen angel so pathetic that Ersay defeated him in just a single punch, yet she still did so much damage and would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for Ersay defeating her. Charlotte shouted with rage in her heart, "If anything, I hope you enjoy dying a painful death, you perverted crow." Charlotte ended the speech. Many were silent, however, no one clapped. They were guilty of what they did. Issei then looked at the girls and muttered, "The show still has its final act remaining." Issei came to his brother Dai and used his own sacred gear to punch into his stomach. He dug into his body as he created a holy light magic bomb and left it on. He activated the bomb, causing Dai to explode in a barrage of blood and other organs. Issei had activated the barrier before that to make sure he and the girls didn't get dirty. Issei revives him again. This is his second death. Dai begged Issei to show him mercy, but he ignores him. He then charges an electric current with his hands and zaps him. He continues this until Dai is flatlined, and his body was completely burned and scarred. Issei smirks seeing this. He is dead. Issei revives him again, much to everyone's horror, as he kept punching him in the face. He was a bloody mess. Issei then crushes his skull as he spoke in an annoyed tone. "Ugh, my shoes got dirty." He revived him a fifth time as Dee was already holding his head in pain. "Please stop, please." As he ignored him and summoned the divine dividing, he divided his strength, making him dizzy, and he kicked him so hard in the pelvis that a skeleton came out. As he reviewed him another time, many were looking away, many were begging him to stop, and the leaders watched helplessly at what was going on. They wanted him to stop, but they failed to do so. Ingvild passed out seeing this while Valerie was puking. She was not interested in seeing anatomy like this. Issei had lightning in his hands as he started to shock his pelvis area, making him scream in pain. His pelvis was as good as gone. He then summoned 2 holy dragons using Incinerate Anthem and activated his balance breaker. The holy dragons burned him alive, leaving nothing but a charred mess. As Issei revived him a 7th time, the holy dragons disappeared, and he decided to bring out Absolute Demise, which was Lavinia's sacred year. "Well, brother, you have experienced heat, now it is time to experience the cold." Issei spoke with a grin as he froze his entire body into ice. He brought out an ice hammer, and he smashed the body into tiny bits, killing him a 7th time. He revived him again an 8th time. This time, he used his true long eye nest to carve an opening into his back as he cut it in half. He then separates the victim's ribs from their spine, pulling their bones and skin outward to form a set of wings and removing their lungs from their chest cavity. He then blasted the heart, as he screamed in pain during the entire procedure. He eventually died as Issei revived him a 9th time. This time, he had already lost whatever sanity he had left. He fired 2 dragon shots aimed at his chest as he then kicked him, sending him flying. He then fired a final, stronger shot, killing him a 9th time. All the spectators had one thing in mind: they begged him to stop. However, Issei ignored them and they tried to leave, but the girls also made sure to lock any entrances. It would take time to open even with a Juka working on them. He revived him for the 10th and final time. "It's time to show you my ventriloquist skills," Issei spoke with a mocking tone as he ripped Ai's heart with his bare fist. He then used his leg as a support to pull the upper torso as the spotlight came onto him, thanks to Quinilla's secretly controlling the lights. Brother, why don't I get any girls? Issei spoke in a mocking tone, imitating Dai. It was because of your attitude that you get no bitches. Issei explained to his brother in a mocking tone, all in all, while Dai slowly closed his eyes, hoping that it would be the end of the pain. Both Charlotte and Quinella were happy to see the brother that tormented him suffer like this. However, Issei revived him again. Many thought this show wouldn't end. Dai was running away in fear. However, before he could react, Issei sent him flying with a roundhouse kick that cracked his chin, sending him flying. His bones were partially broken. He was knocked out completely. He was too mentally scarred to even do anything. He passed out hoping that it would end his pain. With that, the show has ended, Issei spoke bored. He was no longer interested in torturing Dai, especially if he was too broken. As he and the girls walked towards the entrance, everyone could only watch in horror at what happened. They saw as things dawned upon them. One of the things was, he was the monster they created. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.